Just start in the middle of
Hello, everyone. It's time for Hotline League. This week, Mark Zimmerman won't shut up, and so I have to talk over him to start the show because he's my constant co-host. Let me introduce him right now. Mark Zimmerman, how's it going?
It's going great. We're having such a good time. Travis is just not letting us have a good time.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
With my
Mark,
friends.
who, after the show, at exactly 9 p.m. Pacific, Mark starts panicking. He goes into this sheer thing. I can sense his stress coming across Discord and Skype, and he's just like, we got to wrap up the show. We got to wrap up the show. We got to wrap up the show.
And yeah, for some reason, we go to like 9:20 every weekend.
Because for some reason, you won't let me start the show on time.
Oh, yeah. We're starting at 7:10 because of my problems,
Let's be clear here. The person who was talking at the beginning of the show was Mark Zimmerman. Our guest this week is none other than Jatt Leisman. That's what we're going with. Is that what? Cool. Is that how you like to be called? You got rid of Joshua, right? Like it's just Jatt now?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people call me Josh.
I thought you changed your full first name
to Jatt.
No?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll update though. I know. I'm just kidding. I just typed in. I think I was going to type in Jatt, and then I just went with your last name, and I needed to change it back. To
you're giving me the low. Oh, Jatt. I mean, Jatt Leisman. That's fine. Like, no one's going to get confused.
I'm fixing it. Okay. We got to get you that golfing sponsor. They're going to be very confused.
I would love any type of golfing bag, club, ball.
What about Kelby? We're talking to Kelby today. Let Kelby know.
Does 100T do? They do all this like golfing stuff. Have they gotten any free? Has Nate Shot about getting free stuff?
They have, but I think Truly gave them like a TrackMan golf simulator, which is like $40,000.
You wanted
Nate Shot.
Okay, yeah, but you want specifically to be sponsored by golfing brands.
I just want sure.
Free golfing stuff.
Yes.
Okay. If anybody is watching right now and you work for a golf brand, or you're listening later on, or you're catching it on YouTube, please.
I would love to shill that golf stuff.
Yeah, just
even if you're like a local golf shop in the Los Angeles area, I'm sure Jatt will give you guys a shout out.
PSG Talon free stuff. They sent me the shirt along with a bunch of other cool things that Kobe and I he got some stuff too. I have to shout them out beyond this, but they make really great merch. I'm a huge PSG Talon merch fan. All right. Speaking of sponsors, we're going to shout out Grubhub and Alienware because they actually do spend money sponsoring the show, so they deserve some attention as well. We'll talk more about them later on. But, Mark, we normally do like a bit of a catch-up with you and what you've been doing, and I just want to hear this out because Jatt was saying that you tweeted about TV or something, and we always talk about media at the beginning of this. So what do you got?
So I did like a little roundup because I watched a lot over the long weekend. I watched The Bear, Stranger Things, Spy Family, Tragedy Girls, Summer of '84, and The Boys. And I just tweeted out a bunch of. The Boys was only one episode. Stranger Things was a couple. Spy Family was a couple. The Bear was the whole show, and then some of them was their movies. So like in the end, it's probably only like 15 hours of TV and movies. Is that a lot?
Did you not watch Players?
3 days. Players was on Thursday. This is from I think Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah.
Something.
Okay. Good.
Anyways, they're all good.
Yeah, Stranger Things was good. Do you have to watch The Bear on Hulu?
Yep.
Okay.
Soon
enough. No. I'll get it though. I'll get it.
I do feel like everybody's talking
really good.
About
it. I saw Fionn tweeting about it. I think it's super good. I think anyone should like it though. I was surprised one person who works at the LCS didn't like it. I think less of them now. Colin.
Really? Okay. Well. Boom. Okay. Let's talk about actually so on this episode we will be discussing many things, including week 3 of the LCS. Mark Zimmerman sat down with me last week and he said, Travis, you got to be more positive. There's a bunch of really great things to talk about in the LCS. I think things are getting better. The games have been getting great. And then Saturday happened.
No.
And one noted influencer said that it was like being literally tortured. Was that what Dominate tweeted? I forget. He said something.
That's really surprising coming from Dom because he's usually so positive, right?
I messaged Mark about that. I'm like, at least I'm not tweeting literally torture. But Mark,
but Travis used this to feel vindicated.
No. I did not use it to feel vindicated. It was funny because I know Mark had been hyping up LCS so much lately. And I want to say that I do think there's been a lot of good stuff, but it was just ironic because he had this big like pep talk motivational speech with me on Wednesday or Thursday. And then I think most people's opinions of Saturday's games were that they were boring and terrible.
They were fucking awful. We can be honest about it. I'm not trying to lie. I think what was funny is looking at this day of games, I was like, Saturday's going to be a banger. Sunday's going to suck. Thank God I'm not on Sunday, so I can.
Sunday was good.
Sunday was good. I was so mad. I thought Saturday was going to be the good day, and then you got the good day, and I got the snoozer day.
Yeah, you got wrecked.
Yeah.
So I think my point still stands. The LCS is fun to watch now. I think there were a lot of cool upsets on Saturday, or excuse me, Sunday. Can't speak.
What was weird is for how boring the weekend felt on like Reddit and Twitter, to talk about it, that was actually really had a lot of things that were interesting. Like when I did the JLXP with Raz, we were going through the topics and we thought, wait a minute, I thought this week sucked. But there's actually so much interesting things. So thanks for shoulder content, I guess. But you do want the games to actually not elicit that reaction, so that could improve.
Yeah. I mean, the highlight I think was probably, I mean, you guys tell me, but the Golden Guardians EG Golden Guardians EG match with that draft I thought was really entertaining.
That was a good one. I think Dig beating TSM and FlyQuest beating C9 were interesting. I think Saturday's TL 100 game was not super exciting because TL just kind of rolled over and died. But at least I think everyone but EG feels like they're kind of in the middle, except for Immortals. Mm-hmm. There's still some striation within that pack in the middle, but it still feels close enough that anyone can kind of take games off anyone. TL lost to TSM, who then lost to Dig, kind of thing.
Yeah. So we'll talk about this weekend's games. There's also been a little bit of news. If you live in Canada, you got fucked this past week. I'm sorry, there is no Worlds for you. You will be going to, unless you want to fly to Atlanta, you will not be able to watch semifinals in your country, and that's super bummer news. I remember back in 2015 or something like that, I was making a big deal about the fact that it was called North America League Championship Series, and then they did, and they hadn't done Canada, and then they did a couple great Canada events. We did Toronto and Vancouver, and I was really excited to go back again this year, even though Toronto's kind of boring. And I'm very bummed that this ended up happening. So, Jatt, how badly did you take it as a Canadian? What was the reaction from Canada?
It's a COVID thing, right?
Yeah.
If I had to guess.
Well, I think it's like a visa. It's the travel.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, by the way, these are different countries, so it's really going to create. I mean, it sucks. It definitely sucks. Canada, the Canadian crowd when we did LCS finals there in, I think it was 2017, was so insane. I think maybe that and Madison Square Garden are the two best finals crowds I've experienced in LCS. So big bummer, but also super understandable. And I know Canadians are pretty chill, so I don't think they're that mad about it.
Yeah. No, that seemed to be the reaction. Everybody was just very polite. Vulcan in the chat says, give Montreal LCS finals fat. Then he said fast. So they wanted to get the LCS finals fat and fast, I guess.
The Americans taking over his brain. The lard is wrapping around his cortex.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would love to see... I really hope that we get an LCS finals next year in Canada. One of them is spoken for, I think. New Jersey is either spring or summer. I forget.
Oh, really?
And so the other
I don't know
one,
any of these things anymore, so it's news to me.
No, they did it as a last year when they couldn't do New Jersey, they're like, but guess what? We're going to go in 2023. And everybody's like, oh, wow, that's a wise way. Anyway, but yeah, would love to go back to Canada. So that's some news. I don't know if any Canadians want to call in and feel sad.
There's an outside chance they get Kevin Durant, though. So that will be cool.
I'm sure all the league fans will be like, you know what? We didn't want a World Finals event. We got KD.
We got Kevin Durant. Yeah.
And Atlanta will be like, who cares we didn't get Kevin Durant? We got a league finals event.
Yeah. We have Trae Young, and he can shoot threes.
Hot spot of esports, Atlanta. Here we come.
NBA. Okay, so let's.
I love that's your reaction. You're like, and basketball.
Yes,
moving
exactly.
on.
I have to be very careful. Who was it? I was going on a hike with a friend this week, and we were talking about you, Jatt, and just all the obscure basketball references that you've managed to fit into the broadcast over the years.
Yeah,
and that there should be like, that's what it was. I was talking about how, I thought that. Okay, we're gonna try to do the Mark Positivity thing. I thought that the video with like the pigeon where all the casters were doing very goofy things was very well produced. The one that came out at the start of the split.
A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
I would have enjoyed it if that video had felt a little bit more connected to LCS culture. And while there was the pigeon from, I think, an event in 2016 that nobody remembers anymore, it would have been fun if all the casters had, like, if you're going to feature all the casters, like, play into the jokes about them, like the fucking cat thing with Kobe, you, like, trying to figure out how many obscure NBA references you can get in, Mark's, like, hair, like, maybe the hairstylist is trying to figure out how to, like, make him look like a human, just, like, all these different things I thought would have been interesting, but anyway.
Yeah. I will try and fit in as many golf references during this Hotline League episode just for you because of your hiking conversation.
Fantastic.
I would love next time someone has like a 6 solo kill, Jatt, you just scream mashed potatoes into the microphone.
I'm a buoy. They're so annoying. They're so annoying.
The mashed potatoes call is still one of the funniest things I've seen, and to that point, like, it ruined golf because now everyone wants to yell random shit after a swing.
Ooh, I'm a moderator on this channel.
Yes, boom. Now you can. Thanks. Anybody who says anything disrespectful, you can.
You can now type cat in chat and not get banned. Look.
Yeah. Congratulations. Anyway,
that's actually the best perk of it.
Well, Mark still sometimes tests it that he does get banned, and then he gets very upset. Anyway,
well, you banned me for not.
Anyway,
everyone's getting timed out.
Yeah, you'll see everybody timing themselves out now in chat. Okay, so let's before we take
this episode's
callers,
off to a great start.
Yeah, no, it's always like
this is every episode. We're fucking terrible.
Okay, let's before we get into some callers though, I did want to touch on the player stuff, Jatt, because I know you were really involved in it.
Yeah.
You consulted on it. Now most of the episodes are out, and I thought it would just be fun to have like a brief, maybe 5-minute conversation about what it's been like seeing the episodes come out and people's reactions and your kind of involvement in it. So yeah, I mean, what's it been like as these have been dropping?
Players was really cool to be involved with, and I feel like the people that have watched it all really like it, but like accessibility and discoverability is low. And it's getting like weirdly review bombed on IMDb. Like really? I keep checking it. It only has like 400 reviews, and like 60 of them are 0 stars, and then the majority are like 8 to 10. It's got like 90-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I don't know, man.
Some Dota kids came in.
Yeah, no, I was literally about to make that joke. Damn it. And you didn't even deliver it the way I was going to deliver it.
Right,
I was going to be like,
wow.
Give
me the A+ delivery. Give me
I guess you said there were like
Travis.
100 bad or zeros or something like that. I was going to be like, man, I guess there's only 100 people playing Dota these days. Okay,
the entire Dota player base downvoted.
Okay, but for players, it was really cool actually because it was shooting during the time of like a little bit of the dead time between what normally would be Summer Split and Worlds, but then also Worlds. But because I just quit TL and wasn't immediately jumping back into casting, there was actually this like pocket of time where I had the ability to go consult on the show. So I was on set for any of the days where they did league content. So if they ever wanted to make sure that like a coaching scene or an in-game scene or like what any of the actors are saying in their like confessional interviews was true to league, then I was there like in what they call video village. So like I saw the whole thing filmed. Me and Keen Lamb. Keen was there every single day of filming, also during the writer's room and also during post-production. So he was definitely way more involved, but I was like part of trying to keep the like the show true to like a League fan. And I don't know. I thought that was just like such a cool experience seeing kind of the guts of how a like legit TV show was made, because it's a CBS show, right? It just ends up being on Paramount Plus. So that was a really cool experience. And then I think that gave me a bit of an upper hand as well in terms of like, because they actually had a lot of people, anytime they were doing a line in the show, like the way they film it, you're going to have like 5 or 6 people saying the same line. And then during the edit, they find like what the best thing is to fit. But I got to see all of that happen. So I realized I'm in it a lot. And I think part of that is because I got to listen to everyone do theirs before I did mine. So it wasn't like I was going in dry each time. It's a good show though.
Yeah. No, I'm really happy with the way it came out. Mark and I have been doing reviews. We'll do episode 6 tomorrow. We're really just the release schedule is really bad for Mark and I, because then we have to work on the weekends and then we come out of it. And yeah, anyway, but it's been fun watching it. And I don't know, but have you seen, like, have you tracked a lot of the community sentiment? Is there anything that in particular that you were a part of that you've seen that like really landed well with the players? I know you were not, or the fans. I know you were not like in the writing room per se, but
yeah, I would say like I'm really happy with the scene in terms of all the League stuff landing. What might have ended up happening is like it's almost too good at being genuine League show, which might stop it from reaching like a wider audience, because I haven't been able to catch on any of the like external discussions for it. Yeah. I need to get my family to watch it so I can get their opinion on it, and I'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, I've been very curious to see what the outside world feels like it.
And then, I mean, I've had Ashley watching it, but even she is like, even though she doesn't know the game, she's still like very familiar with the scene.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the scene jokes, she'll be like, "Is that supposed to be double lift or something?" And I'll be like, "Kind of." And so like it's like someone needs to not get any of the references, and like that's the person I want to like see their reaction.
Yeah, Artazoba in the chat says the players' names are so cringe though, and I've seen this feedback a ton. They say like Artazoba says, "Well, there's organism and cream cheese," and I'm just like, how? Like, do you watch this? Do you watch League of Legends esports? Like, it's so hilarious to me how
the most senior caster's name is Freak
with a PH.
Yeah, but like, you know how awkward that is in like an airport when you need to like call to him and you just yell "Freak," and he turns around, and people are like, "Whoa, what's going on with those two?" We have a guy who's won LCS championships called Balls. Like,
can you imagine if they
fine?
Can you imagine if they had a caster in the show that was just named LeBron?
Instead of Kobe, yeah.
It's just like it's just. I don't understand sometimes when people.
I mean, especially like the food ones, like between fudge, licorice. There's so many other players I can't remember that have food names, and they're like spaghetti and cream cheese. What the?
Oh man, poor spaghetti.
There's lore to the people in the show. What is this art? Yeah, so some people are saying like, well, those are real people, and we know their history, and it's like, yeah, and these are fictional characters with fictional history, and like, I don't know if it bugs you that much, you're gonna really struggle when new players join the scene.
Yeah. One thing.
Can you imagine tuning into Academy and just being like, "What are all these names?
I haven't heard of these fuckers. What's the lore on this name?"
One thing I'll say to the chat is the series gets better. So like, if you watch the 2 free episodes on like Paramount Plus's YouTube channel, like, I actually think it builds really, really well, because the challenge of episode 1 in a series like that is you're just introducing so much. Like, they're trying to explain League to a general audience while also trying to like explain to you the characters of the show. But once all that foundation is set, it just gets like so much funnier. I feel like in episodes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way through to 10.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've jibber jabbered for a while. Mark, you already filled up the waiting room. We don't even have to do that.
What? There's only 5 people.
I mean, that's
not that filled up. We'll see how fast it goes. Depends how talkative Jatt's feeling. Someone's going to ask Jatt a question.
Casters on the show, we
no.
get half as much time.
I have a question, Travis.
Yes.
Is it rude for a guest to grab food and come back to the microphone?
No, you can do that while Mark grabs the next caller.
There's also sponsor breaks soon.
Let me know.
Yeah, we can do the sponsor break. We'll do it during the sponsor break. That's a good idea. Okay. Mark is off to grab the first caller. Shout outs to some subs who subbed.
Where are we right now?
Wait, Mark is almost back.
Okay.
America Vespucci, Benjamin, Glimmerglen, Xander Gage, Beasteasy, Professor, and the Fish Gaming. Okay, we got our first caller of the night here. It's BigZ. BigZ, where are you calling from? BigZ, where are you calling from?
Oh, no.
Wait, there we go. Hello.
Was connected. Hey, I'm calling from Tallahassee, Florida.
Tallahassee, Florida.
Oh, nice.
Hey!
Home of MSI 2015.
Yes. I've been there, shockingly, have been there twice for 2 esports events, and I never expected that. Anyway, did you go to FSU?
No, I did not go to FSU, but my brother went to FSU.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take was on the Monte Cristo informed sources talking about the import changes that may be coming at the beginning of next year.
Which are, if you want to break them down for those.
Yeah, so the import changes were just going to, at least from what I saw, was that all of the minor regions will be considered residents for all major regions. So Brazil, Turkey, Oceania is already resident for NA, but stuff like that for all the major regions. And my take was that this is going to ruin competitive league as a whole. And one of the comments was talking about how like a way to kind of fix the whole like minor regions aren't going to be a thing if this happens. And that would be something like doing like a Asian games, but for other regions, like doing America games, doing European games, stuff like that. But the main thing is that the if this were to happen for next year, I think it's going to ruin competitive league as a whole.
So
why will it ruin competitive league as a whole?
Because then you're just going to have issues where people in all these minor regions, because it's already kind of struggles, at least in my opinion, where you go to international event and yes, you do see some of the minor regions like Brazil and Japan, they'll pop off or get their games here and there, but you know they're not going to be competitive with the major regions like China, like Korea, like Europe, sometimes NA. So it's just kind of tough because in a lot of the beginning of this tournament just feels like a filler, like they're trying to meet a quota, and that feels bad for the fans of those regions because then it's like, well, if they're not actually seen as competitors, why are they, going to this competition if there is no chance in them winning, and the whole thing is just to keep it from it being 4 Korean teams, 4 Chinese teams, 4 European teams, and NA to clean up the rest. So
I am very interested in this. One, I will admit that I haven't spent enough time thinking about the broad ramifications of this because it would be a giant hit, I think, or shock, I guess I would say, to the system. Because I do actually think that depending on how you do it, there's a good chance that you have situations where like Cloud9 is just like, okay, our academy or amateur team are like the best Oceania team or something like that. Like if you really have a situation where there's no cap on how many you can have, you could end up having stuff like that where people just pull over like, oh, this is the Turkish team that won the championships. Okay, we're just going to bring them all over and see what ends up happening.
The power of God and anime. We're bringing over
yes.
Dat Nation Focus Me as our academy team.
I will say, like, it's hard for me. I mean, Mark and Jatt, help me out here. Like, it's hard to imagine too many regions of the 4 other than North America really trying to pull a ton.
6 could do it because America or the NA is the same as VCS and PCS seed wise, so I assume it would probably apply to them as well.
Are PCS and VCS considered major regions? Because I think his whole thing was.
So
I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah, because in his informed sources, it says only the major regions, the minor regions would be the one considered as residents of whatever major region they go to.
But PCS and VCS have been in the major region category since like 2019 when Vietnam made their 2 runs in a row. They've been in that group. I'm pretty sure.
Or Pool 2, I guess, because NA is with Pool 2.
Yeah, they've been in Pool 2 with us. Yeah, ever since they introduced that.
So I wonder if that means you can't pull from PCS and VCS then.
No, you wouldn't be able to.
Those 2 could pull, but they can't be pulled. That would be interesting. Okay. But anyway, back to my original question, which is fine. Of the 6 major regions, do we think any of them other than North America are very likely to like use this system extensively?
I would expect not, but it's hard to know because the regions that currently don't might invest a little bit more into scouting minor regions to try and find more diamonds in the rough, so to speak. So I think like Europe right now is an easy no. Of course, why would they? They have the ERLs and whatnot. But realistically, if you're watching Worlds and some kid like Jose Dioto pops off, like maybe you would reach out now because it doesn't hurt. Even not like it hurt it anyways. Not like anyone in LAC really runs up against the import rule restriction unless it's with Korean imports. So it's a bit of a non-factor.
I would love to know how, like as someone who is a fan of the LLA, what Jose Dioto going to LCS meant for the league. Like, was it a positive for the league and the fact that people are like, oh, hell yeah, our players are better? Like, did the fandom transfer? Or was it literally just, oh yeah, now no one cares about this team because he was such a big star? I don't know what the answer to that question is. I think, like, the one example you would be able to look at would be the OPL, which is now, I forget what they call it because they changed the
LCL.
Yeah.
LCL. There we go.
That one is a little different because at the same time that the import restrictions got dropped, like the actual support for the region also got dropped. So I don't know if you can say like them losing their players is what caused the decline of the region. Anyway, I'm kind of dancing around the question. I think there's a lot of factors that play because it will ultimately come down to some economics if you actually have a better business case for running some like I'm not going to use a specific, but let's say you're running a minor region team. Like, what are the economics of that team? How much ad revenue can you get and how many sponsors can you sign within your own region? And then how much of your revenue would be a possible buyout to a more funded league? And also, what is the motivation level of your players? Is it to be scouted for the LCS? And then another total tangent is you don't need to have Worlds relevance to be a successful League of Legends esports league. Just look at the LFL, where they are like crushing viewership and doing live events, even though they don't even get a chance at going to Worlds. So I actually have no definitive stance on whether this is good or bad. I think it's really complicated.
I generally think it's bad because overall, I am against expanding import stuff in North America. Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny because as you guys were talking about this, I was thinking back on the question I posed to you, and I actually feel like there's a chance that some of these bottom tier teams in the LEC, and maybe even like Immortals or something like that, could just be like, oh, what's the best team in Brazil? Okay, we're just going to buy those players, pay them league minimum, and just run that full team, right? Which is like the part of the reason the import rule was created in the first place was because people were doing that with LMQ, where you're just like, okay, now you can have this whole team. There's not much of a culture shock. There's not even like a language barrier between them because they can just all speak to each other. And using Brazil as an example, but like LEC could potentially try to do that with a region, a specific region. And I think that would be, I don't know. It's again, like to your point, Jatt, we are kind of ignorant on what it means for these individual regions. Like maybe they would love to have their best team play in the LEC or the LCS, but I think it could also just feel pretty shitty where it's like, cool, now your best team doesn't play in this league or this region and blah.
Well, Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's a chance that happens, but I also don't think it would be that likely that, and again, this is speculation, so who knows, but I really don't think it's likely that a team is just like, fuck it, YOLO, it's way easier to get a bunch of visas and shit than it is to pay academy players. Like, realistically, I just don't think that
Mark, really? I think you are overestimating these bottom tier teams. They want to run
because, especially because of how like you think of NA talent and, you know, somebody like Kenby, right? Where he had a pretty large buyout going to Immortals from 100 Thieves Academy.
Not anymore.
Like, well, not anymore. But
No,
if
no,
you go,
I'm saying that like the bubble burst with like at this point, like no one's paying $500,000 for fucking academy players. That never really happened outside like a couple instances where like Jack made out like a bandit with package deals and shit. But I don't think Kenby made, or like Immortals made hand over. God, 100 Thieves made crazy money on Kenby. And even him as like an example, there's plenty of players like CLG. How much do you really think that fucking lineup costs? You know, like Contracts is probably the most expensive player. Is he that much more expensive than what it would take to fly a bunch of people over to America, handle all their visas, get like a bunch of support systems set up to like actually make this happen versus just get like a bunch of academy players? Like I don't know if the financials even make sense that way.
do you think like Brazil, like let's say Brazil, for example, Brazilian players are better than NA Academy players? Are they about the same? Or are they worse? Because let's say you take a full team of Brazilian players, right? You take the top team from Brazil and you go and throw them as Immortals' new lineup. You know, yes, will they be more expensive than what Immortals is probably paying right now? Possibly, but does it give them a better chance to like be competitive in the league? I think that's what Immortals is probably more worried about versus finishing 10th place the second or third split in a row, you know?
Immortals can't even keep a GM for more than a year. I don't think they're going to mastermind uplifting like fucking Red Canids over to like, no, that's not going to happen. Like you're not going to sign top Brazilian players. I just don't think that'll actually happen.
I disagree. I think there's totally a chance that could end up happening. Because here's how you do it. Here's the scenario. You say, wow, we're a shitty team. And I'm not even talking about Academy, by the way. I'm talking about potentially for their LCS team. If Immortals finishes 10th this split, and this rule goes into effect, and they decide that maybe it's even a little bit cheaper to run like the best team from one of the other minor regions. I don't even want to lock in which region yet. And they say to themselves, this is the business justification they make. Oh, we'll get so many fans from that region, and so we'll be able to activate, and we'll do all this stuff, and it plays with, you know, this is an underserved audience or something. And so they say, like, this is our big plan. This is how we're going to do it. And so they're saving money.
But
they
none
think
of your
better potential, and they think they might be able to
apply to Brazil. If you're a fucking North American organization and you're trying to sell to NA sponsors, and you go like, and our demographics in Brazil.
But a lot of these teams don't consider themselves NA organizations. They consider themselves like global
international.
Yeah.
But then is having a Brazilian player in the LCS going to monetize better than having a Brazilian player in Brazil?
For the LCS team that has the Brazilian player, yes.
Yeah, but to the point that Jatt's making is like, if you think that you can make more money in Brazil, why don't these teams just go to Brazil and buy a team there instead of buying them in America?
Yeah, because my argument would be like if you monetize a Brazilian player better in Brazil, then the Brazilian org is going to be able to pay more money to that player than an NA org, because you're not going to be able to monetize the Brazilian player in NA as much. We're talking a little bit in circles.
No. I think here I'll put the kibosh on this by saying, my take on this is, NA orgs, esports orgs, especially the ones that are near the bottom, need any fucking thing they can hang their hat on, because they are verging on irrelevance and insolvency. And so they will try to, like, if they're like, oh, our social media numbers look shit in our deck, but we can put all these social media numbers in that look way better, and then just like gloss over the fact that they are mostly a Brazilian audience or something like that, or they could just show
maybe
our engagement's crazy. Like, they will do whatever that takes, you know, to do this. And so in a logical world, yes, I agree with you guys. Like, this doesn't make as much business sense. We're talking about esports organizations. We're not talking about logical business sense.
All right, I'll throw my final my opinion out, and we don't need to debate it. But my thing is, I don't think a lot of the bad teams realistically think that this would be a money getting situation. Maybe it'll help, like you said, with some social numbers, but realistically, Papa Smithy and Empire in chat both said that they don't think that CBLOL or LLA or anything is realistically much better than Academy players. And I think there's more hoops to jump through and more problems that you have to try and fix, that it becomes difficult enough that the upsides don't actually makes sense for a lot of like those minor regions. I think you'd be more concerned about Eastern minor regions, maybe, and like let's try and scrounge up someone from Japan or something. I don't know. I don't know. But either way, I don't think it makes that much sense. I don't know how the minor regions feel about it, like we were saying. And I don't know if it affects anyone but NA. I think the most damage this rule does is look like favoritism towards NA, because I also don't see many of the other 5 regions making a play at this. So I think it just looks dumb to like as a way to save NA. But it's like...
Well, I'll throw my final thought in there too, because like Empire linked this, I guess it's a Jackie Felling post about
Reddit post, Reddit comment.
Yeah, like excited to continue to invest in North American player talent pipeline. Like NA doesn't get to make this decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this would be a global decision. And I think the only realistic way you do it is either someone at Central Esports thinks it will help the majority of global League of Legends esports, because if it will hurt the majority of global Legends esports, they won't do it. It's not like there's no like secret room where NA gets to dictate these decisions. That's not how
people
it works.
Don't get. That's the tough thing, is fans don't understand the like difference between all these different,
the global team versus
they just
NA
think it's
team.
Riot Games esports. Yeah. So my biggest concern, by the way, with this is like, what if they start doing this as a means to slowly start to OS other regions, other minor regions? I think
that would suck.
Yeah,
that I think is more likely.
But it might be why it's happening. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think it's more likely that LLA just becomes part of NA than it's like free money. Everyone go to Turkey, go wherever. I mean, like it would help. I guess LEC with Turkey is like the other angle, because there is some there, but again, I think they just bring over the best Turkish players, which they're already doing anyways, regardless of the import rules.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it actually changes anything.
All right, BigZ.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you for the
of
call.
Course. Real quick, and then the other half of that take about the like Asian games, America games. I don't know if you guys wanted to pipe in on that real quick, or if you want to move on to the next caller.
I think we have to move on to the next call, just because your take was so beefy that we had to spend so much stuff on the first half. But
BigZ with the big take.
Hey, man.
Is there anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break and let Jatt eat?
No, just shout at you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. It's always fun. I usually just listen to the podcast or video, YouTube video after it comes out, but I was able to make it on tonight. So y'all have a good night.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to make it. Thanks so much for the call.
Of course.
Okay. We're going to now take our break.
I'll be back before you know it.
Go grab your food. We're going to talk about Alienware. So right now, Alienware has a Black Friday in July happening this month. So this is kind of a really cool thing that they do, where I think for a lot of folks, summer rolls around, maybe you've got some extra free time on your hands, you want to do something, but you're like, oh, I really got to wait for those big deals to hit in November. Like that's where I'm going to have all my ability to afford the stuff, because there's some good promotions going on. Well, they actually bring you this event in July. It's a big sale that occurs over at Alienware. And so I would ask you guys to check out the deals that they have. And please, if you are going to the Alienware website, do so by going to alienware.com/Travis. This is a new big push that we are trying to make, because a lot of you guys have used my code, and I totally get it that like maybe 4 months from now, you're like, oh, I think I do want to get a PC. And you're like, I know Travis has a code. I can save some money. You just go to Alienware, you type in the code, and you're like, cool, there we go. But the thing that will help more than anything, especially right now with this sort of initiative that we're experimenting with, is actually typing in alienware.com/Travis, the full URL. Because we're trying to do some interesting tracking stuff, trying to learn some stuff. And there's a world here where we turn this into something that's a little bit cool for the Travis Gafford Industries business, in terms of your ability to know that whenever you're purchasing something from that URL, we will literally get a cut of that. So it's an experiment we're doing right now. It's just we're testing to see how it works and how many people will actually use the URL. But please check out Alienware. There's a link in the description below if you would like to do that. If you're watching on YouTube, actually putting in the chat right now. As well, if you're on Twitch, and if you're on the podcast, again, alienware.com/Travis. please check that out, and also keep an eye out for Black Friday and July so that you can save some money on some awesome systems. All right, Jatt is back. He made it. Mark, you want to go grab the next caller?
What are we eating?
You want to see?
Sure, or you can say.
It's
whichever.
spaghetti. Homemade spaghetti.
Fantastic.
Classic.
Should have had it delivered.
I was about to cook it when Travis said, "See you in 10 minutes." So,
did you know you were going to be on tonight?
I did know.
Okay.
But whether or not I remembered is a different discussion.
Because I went to Mark's stream earlier today, and I was like, "Hey, is Jatt confirmed?" He's like, "Yeah, I forgot to message him until last minute," and then he sent a vague message about wanting to go out of town for July 4th. And so Mark was like unclear based on your message about wanting to go out of town if that meant you were actually available or not. So then he's just like, just tweet it and we'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah. I meant to say yes. I would say the reason I go out of town on 4th of July is because Kubo is very scared of fireworks.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, then there's just too many fireworks, man.
In LA, they just keep all the illegal fireworks. They go forever. It's so annoying.
They go to like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm dog sitting, and I didn't even think about it. And just fucking last night was the worst.
It's so sad. Less illegal fireworks, please. Okay, LestForce is here. LestForce, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Baltimore, Maryland.
Ooh, you are super quiet. Can you get a little closer to your microphone?
Yeah, let me.
I've got you to 200%. So,
is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Much better.
You're calling from Baltimore, Maryland. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I want to talk about IMT, and obviously this whole year has been a pretty big disaster for them, even more so in the summer. And I think at this point they need to salvage what they can from this season by playing around Kenby. And in order to do so, I think that they need to promote Pretty to the LCS roster, and I guess that means demoting Power of Evil.
Interesting. Okay. So, I'm out of curiosity, where did you, how did this conclusion arrive for you?
So, I mean, they've been, IMT, I'm an Immortals fan, and they've just been getting absolutely, one of the only, I know.
That's how, hang on, we're going to take 5 steps back. Why are you an Immortals fan?
Just whenever I first started watching the LCS back in 2020, just for whatever reason, I just chose Immortals. I didn't know, teams popularity, didn't know, player popularity. I just kind of liked what I watched from Immortals back, Insanity was a rookie, and just for better or worse, I've decided to stick with them and not, jump shit.
Was it, you said it randomly, was it, did you like their branding? Did you like their...
Yeah, I want to know more now. Who are your other teams in, other sports? Are you just an esports fan? So
I'm a lifelong Tennessee Titans fan from Maryland. So maybe there's no consistency there, which kind of makes sense why I like Immortals. Other sports, I'm kind of just more a fan of the league in general. I I enjoy watching all the LCS teams, but IMT is the one that I unfortunately hope have good games every week. And
again, why is it their branding, or what is it that in 2020 made you be like, that's your team?
I just think I enjoyed kind of watching. I don't think it was branding specifically. I think it was just, maybe it was just as basic as I kind of like the players. I kind of like the stuff they had going on at the time. I remember it was SOAS at first, and then they had Insanity, and I don't know. It wasn't specifically due to their branding, because certainly they're not really doing a whole lot to help themselves in that regard.
Completely forgot they had SOAS.
Cool.
I had no idea.
I'm all on board with you being an Immortals fan. This is okay. This is great.
Okay. So you're a fan of theirs, and you feel like the solution is to not run Power of Evil and to have, or is this because do you think that they will get better results, or do you think that this is them building for next year?
Yeah, so I actually really liked the Power of Evil signing when they made that signing at the start of this year. I thought he was a top 3 mid last year, but it just has not worked out. Obviously, many things haven't worked out, but especially now that they brought in Kenby, who they bought out from 100 Thieves, even if it wasn't a huge amount. They spent up just to get him on the roster. I don't think that their playstyles are synergetic at all. Power of Evil's sitting very close to his turret. He's not very forward. Really kind of limits the opportunities for Kenby. He basically just says, let me let me scale for 20 minutes and then we can start team fighting. And I just feel like that really kind of inhibits what Kenvi can do, especially when you look on the side lanes where Loss and Ignar have not looked good so far. And I like Revenge as a player, but he definitely is very inconsistent. Look at his game against 100 Thieves, and someday he simply did not do very well, and he got left on an island. So I just think that the easiest solution is bringing up Pretty, who has done really well in Academy. I know that not a lot of people watch, but he has been a top 3 mid this split, just looking at the stats. And I think that his champ pool and the way that he plays, he's not afraid to sack 3 minions to walk up with his jungler and make a play.
Okay.
Whereas Power of Evil.
One quick question: are you also watching Immortals Academy games?
Yeah, I watch. I watch all the Academy. I don't watch every Academy game, but I do watch like all the teams in some capacity.
I feel like you're probably the biggest Immortals fan in existence. I haven't met any others, so with certainty I can say this. By definition, you're the biggest Immortals fan, but you're also just a big fan. Like, that would be more than most teams' fans of other teams.
Have you purchased any Immortals apparel?
Thought about it, but I've not pulled the trigger.
Someone, if Immortals is watching and has any social media presence, find this guy and send him some free shit.
Send him stuff, and if you ever need a new GM, maybe consider it. Because he knows more about the players than a lot of people that would be going.
He's
for that
talking
position.
a lot of sense. I will say that.
Do you drive a Toyota? It's the last question. LestForce.
Do not drive a Toyota, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's get into the take then. PoE out, Pretty in. Mark, you want to kick us off while Jatt is eating his spaghetti?
Yeah, I think there's a couple layers to this. The first layer is that your team kind of sucks right now, and so even if you think PoE is better than Pretty, which I think most people would say, even if PoE is having a bad split, like in theory he should be better. The split's going bad, so like who cares about that? Like you might make playoffs, but not right now. And even if you make playoffs, you're making any noise. I don't know how long. I have to check the contracts, but like there's no reason to run this team back next year for the most part. So like realistically, he's not a long-term piece. Whereas like maybe Pretty can be. I think there's concerns about putting in players, academy players, in bad situations, and just like, all right, well that didn't work. What do you know? And it's like, well, of course, you're a terrible team, and that's going to feel bad for him. But I think the point that got me on board a little bit more is about Kenvi has historically been an aggressive jungler. He gets carried resources. I feel like Immortals has tried, in theory, more than people say they have, because he's played like Trundle and Volibear recently. But he's also got a Lee Sin. He's played one game of everything, but it's like Lee Sin, Viego, Nocturne, Wukong, Taliyah. And like 5 of those 7 are like theoretically aggressive champions that can like do what he wants. But PoE does have the lowest 4% in the league. He's at 9.7%. On the flip side, someone like Takoyi is at 29%. He's got 20%. He's at 9.7. Next closest to him is Abadage at 11.8. Then Jensen at 13.6. And it kind of goes up from there.
Since you're in there right now, what's Pretty at in Academy?
I have to go pull up Academy.
Okay.
But
you can continue your take. I don't.
Anyways, my point is simply that like, if the idea is get someone who's going to listen to Kenvi, and I don't know the dynamic, maybe PoE is listening to Kenvi, but it doesn't feel like he's getting a shoving mid who's going to go work with him in the enemy jungle, quite like Contracts gets with Palafox or Spica gets with Maple. It doesn't feel like that. And so maybe Pretty doesn't need to win lane, but if he can just pick some AFK brain off shoving shit, and then he can work with Kenvi and just follow him around. Like I can buy that idea of like unlocking Kenvi, but that's why I actually think you made a lot of sense.
Jatt?
Yep. I don't hate it. So like the thing that I do hate is I think PoE has like earned the ability to continue to play just through his reputation, and it also depends on like what relationship does Immortals have with Power of Evil. Because if you actually like looking at his career arc, especially with him like coming in late to the season, only having like a couple, like literally a day before playing on stage, and then being like, oh yeah, by the way, 3 weeks in, we're going to bench you. No one is going to see you. Your contract ends this year. Good luck finding a new team. Like it kind of like maybe even ends his career, or at least makes it a huge setback, even if he might not be like the reason that they lose.
So his contract, just for us, reference, it ends next year.
Oh, it's a 2-year?
Yeah. He
But,
usually only
I mean,
signs 1 year, but this year he signed 2.
I feel like he usually signs 2 or 3 years, but they're like fake 2 or 3 year contracts.
Oh,
And he's
really?
like
No,
options or
from what I
something?
remember, he usually insists on doing 1, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, maybe the TSM one was longer than 1, and it only ended
Sure.
up being 1. With that being said, though, I actually do like the idea, because I think in large part, if the culture was different and like getting taken out of the LCS wasn't some like death knell to your career, it would 100% be what they should do. At least for like run it for a couple weeks, like actually 2 or 3 weeks, and just see how it goes. Because they're not winning anything. It's like any type of development roster, they have inbuilt synergy. PoE and Kenvi styles actually do not match. Like PoE is not going to change. Kenvi needs to be a different player to work with Power of Evil, which could be like a roster construction problem. But I would love it if more Academy players got like 3 weeks full to play in the LCS, like the ones that are doing well, to see how they do. I hate it, especially like if they did this and he played like 2 games and it like didn't go great and then he just went back to Academy. That's what I hate the most. I like giving them a good run. I like this
Okay,
move.
question for both of you then. I want to turn this around. So Immortals theoretically should want to play Pretty if they can make it work with PoE. Should Pretty want to play for Immortals on the LCS stage?
I feel like you should. I don't know, you can go first.
I mean, that was it. Mine's the yes.
Oh, just yes. Yeah, I think I've been trying. This has come up a couple of times. It was on the dive. Someone asked a question about like Academy player on a bad team, basically referencing Kenvi, but here Pretty as well. Like, is it worth it? Should you wait or whatnot? But I don't know. I feel like you should take the opportunity, and especially since the team's already kind of on fire, I doubt anyone would judge him too harshly. The other thing I'll say is for just the players in general on Immortals, one of the reasons I put them low this split was because I just didn't have faith in the organization with like all the drama that seemed to happen, that I said like no one really knows because they don't follow Immortals that closely, but like they changed over GMs like 2 to 3 times. I always forget if it's 2 or 3 times in the last year. And like they've had a lot of people quit or leave or something. And so it's just doesn't seem like an environment that's going to get the most out of players. And so that's why I don't want any, like, I don't think judging the players on this roster too harshly is a good idea.
I would just be nervous because I feel like so often these players make Premier. Like, I think what has been very fascinating to me over years has been to realize just how easy it is to look good on a good team and bad on a bad team, and how much that stuff can stick with you. Like, I worry a lot about Tactical, who I think is having a potentially like career, not to go too off on it, I'm sure we have a TSM take because we always do, a career ending like split right now with TSM, or career ending year, and I worry sometimes about how much that stuff sticks to you whenever things are going really bad. So it's just an interesting thought experiment. But if both of you guys think that, and then I know I saw Night Fiend said that as well in the chat from EG. So I don't know. All right, LestForce, thanks so much for the call. It sounds like your take has some legs, though perhaps you have to consider the relationship with PoE before it goes through. But any thoughts that you have or anything you want to shout out before we go on to our next caller?
Yeah, just like Mark had mentioned, I think this season's a wash. So wins and losses shouldn't be the focus at this point. They should just look to develop in the long term, in my opinion. And then in terms of shout outs, shout out to all of you guys. I think you guys do really good stuff in your own different sectors in terms of helping the LCS grow. And then shout out to the Academy. I think there's some really good casters, some really good players down there, and if people would tune in, I think it would help the scene as a whole grow and help these players develop. So thank you for the time.
Honestly, I'd rather people tune into the LCS. Thanks so much for the
Travis,
call, and we'll catch you later. Yeah.
I can make, based on this call, I can make an NBA analogy and a golf analogy.
All right,
which
go
one
for
would
it.
you prefer?
Well, I
Make
think
a
that you
golf
should make the
NBA
golf
analogy.
analogy for your sponsored hopes. Or
For my
your
golf
free
clubs.
Stuff.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, there's a great product called Speed Sticks, which helps you swing the golf club faster. I already own them, so getting free Speed Sticks would not be great.
Isn't that a type of deodorant?
Basically, like, you need to have an end goal in mind whenever you're playing the sport. And if I just wanted to go shoot the lowest score every single time, I would be so much more concerned about how accurately I can hit the clubs. But if I actually want to get really good at golf, so I know I need to swing it fast and hit it far because that's what all the good players do. So I've literally spent 8 months just swinging as hard as I fucking can to gain distance, and it's made me over time a much better golfer, even if I've had some really bad rounds. Because if you look at a lot of the analytics in golf, like distance for years and years and years has been like highly underrated, and it's the best thing you can do to make the rest of your game easier. So what Immortals is doing right now is they're like a bad golfer who's trying to score well. There is no path towards being a good golfer. So they need to figure out what their path is and then take the lumps in the short term. Maybe that's putting in pretty, maybe that's switching out to different players, but whatever they're doing now, it doesn't have an endpoint that leads to success.
It's like I'm watching the analyst desk. Okay, let's go on to the next call. I love that Mark did not take that as a moment to go investigate. He wanted to hear the full golf.
No, I was curious where he was going with it. I am a big traditional sports fan. I don't really I never got deep into golf, but I'm like, where's this going? And I think that was very interesting.
That's all right. Yeah.
At Yahoo Esports, we used to have a joke where we'd call it T-Sports for anything that wasn't esports, and I feel like we should bring that back. Okay, Mark is off. Thank you to, where are we? America's Vespucci Benjamin, Glimmer Glenn, Xander Gage, Beasteasy. The Fish Gaming, Time for 1 year. Thank you, Time. Chameleon, let's see, Girlish Menace, Metal Sparty, Shampoo, ZD, Zemelkai. Hello, Zemelkai. Salt Life, and Fart Master Blaster. We've got some more subs, but that's it for now. Mark should be back in just a second. He's not, so I'm going to keep reading.
Travis, your chat is full of golf questions. I could fill a whole stream answering golf as your viewers just go
JLXP,
down, and the 20 people that are interested in golf get their questions answered.
Yeah. No, that's whatever you hit. When you have about 1,000 people in the chat, you can usually find 20 people that will care about something.
Anything.
And so it just allows you to go off on tangents.
Yeah. How many people care about quantum field theory?
Yeah, 20 people. They're going to ask Mark a bunch of questions. Anyway. Okay, Seth is here. Seth, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from suburban Chicago, Illinois.
Why is everyone already so quiet at the start? Mark, do you
maybe because you're fucking deaf, bro. I don't know.
Twitch chat, type 1 if you thought the caller was quiet.
He's quiet.
Seth, can you turn yourself up a bit?
No, I do not believe so. I will try to speak as closely into the mic as I can, though.
Yes, and maybe speak loud. I don't know if you're trying to be quiet, but yeah. One more time, where are you from?
I'm from suburban Chicago, Illinois. Is that better?
Yes, this is good. What do you want to talk about on the show?
My topic is, should TSM hit the panic button and start rebuilding for next split, or should they make a 1 or 2 changes and still try to make worlds?
What about
here's your TSM call, Travis?
Yeah, should they hit the panic button and try to sell the slot in the LCS as maybe the bigger? No. Okay, so what do you think? Is this a question, Seth, or do you have an opinion one way or the other?
I do have an opinion. It's a general question, but my opinion on it, personally speaking, is that you should. I've heard there's rumors about Spica, not wanting to stay at the split. What I've seen on Reddit, so take that with a grain of salt. But there was also rumors, perhaps, of them not being happy there, so he might move on, and just I do think they should start rebuilding a little bit at first, but not go into full panic mode just yet. I love Tactical. I think he's great. I just think he's having a bad year, and what you guys were saying. What you guys were saying about earlier about how Immortals benching Power of Evil might be a death nail for his career. I think that would be especially true with Tactical, but I also do think that maybe they should start building the roster a little bit and try to figure out what for the future, or maybe start giving him a break, or do what they did with Wild Turtle for FlyQuest 2 years ago, and how give him a couple weeks, put in a player, and then take him out, then put him back in, perhaps. Or I don't know. I just feel like they should start doing something, because something is not working. I don't know. I think they should have a soft panic button, in my opinion.
Well, I don't. Okay, first off, I just wanted to make note that it is 3 weeks into the league. And so, and they basically had like a second rebuild, like before the start of 3 weeks ago, depending on how you want to define rebuild. And so I think it's pretty tough to like really start panicking already. The problem is you are like getting closer and closer to Worlds, but this is a league where the top 8 go to playoffs, so theoretically you should be fine. I do want to mention some tweets that got deleted. Well, one of them got deleted from K's over at TSM, who said, honestly cannot publicly say much. Let's enter next week, but on the real, the results aren't acceptable, TBH. Then already issued a player complaint about player intensity. Is the first time in my career it feels like this situation. Now, no one knows what complain about player intensity it means, but that's the fun of this show, is that when somebody says something vague, we get to endlessly speculate and turn it into all sorts of crazy stuff. So
we're not reporters, we're pundits.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, player intensity could either be someone really lazy or someone really mad.
Yes, exactly. It's like
somebody
is either doing nothing or they're punching a hole in the wall after a game. And so I think that's actually like I love. This is one of the reasons I love TSM. People say, "Oh, Travis is a TSM hater." Fuck that. I love TSM. There's so many fun things they do like this, where they will put out a vague tweet that says, "Issued a complaint about player intensity," then delete the tweet. Who else does this? It's so good.
I will say, a lot of
sports teams do that actually.
At least TSM didn't go from just being like the best team in North America to the worst and just not entertaining. This has been very entertaining, this split. Or this year.
I will also say, Jack really needs to stop tweeting. Like, every bad thing in his career has happened through Twitter. Yeah. He's so respected by everyone for his work, and his Twitter just makes him get fucking fired. So, like, just stop tweeting. You don't need it.
Yeah. He has put his foot in his mouth 3 times so far this year. Just on TSM.
He does such good work. So yeah, just stop, man.
Yeah. He would be in such a better place, I feel like, if he just deleted his Twitter. Like, it's just hilarious. But I love it. Yeah. It's great for
it is.
Jatt will tell you to delete it. I say keep it up because I need content, and like tweets like that deliver the content. Okay, so, Mark, what do you got for us?
I think we're all pretty anti-rebuild, if I'm gonna guess. I think what Travis said about how recently your last rebuild was, it's hard to rebuild. You could put in, like we're saying with the IMT, put in academy players. But knowing TSM's prestige, like I don't know, is that really what your plan is going to be next year? Or is your plan next year going to be to try and sign some talent and like build your roster through money versus scouting? I feel like it's going to be money. And the final thing I'll say is when you build out your priority list, the number one priority this season is making Spica happy.
Oh, damn it. I was going to say that. I forgot to say it my first thing when we were joking, but yes. Like, it's not the fight for Worlds, it's the fight to keep Spica. And maybe those things are aligned, but I just feel like I don't know. I'm very skeptical that he still stays.
Maybe he's oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, should they keep Spica? If he's that unhappy, should you keep Spica and have a situation where with CLG last year, or it almost felt like they were trying to get Wild Turtle and they had to keep Smoothie just so they can get Wild Turtle. And so should you keep Spica and sign mediocre to maybe lower players just so you can keep Spica? I don't know. I think he's really, really good. I think he's almost getting a Lero award at this point this year, but still.
I
don't know.
It depends on what you want 2023 to be. If you're trying to go back to Worlds, then go Spica. If you're panicking because your FTX account is zeroing out in front of you, then you probably go and you say, hey, who won in Brazil this past year? And then you sign that team.
Shut the fuck up. I think at this point, Spica has proved he's an actual franchise player. I think most people kind of knew that when he won an MVP, but there were obviously some doubters in spring. He's looking much better in summer again. I think there's a debate about some teams deciding people are franchise players when they're not really in North America, just because.
I know who you're talking about. Mark
There's a couple
C.
actually. There's a couple I'm actually talking about, to be honest. But you definitely know the one I'm talking about because I talk about it in the green room a lot. I'll save that take for another time. But just like Spica is that guy that you can build around, and like you want to keep players like that. And if he walks, it's a huge fucking loss because how long is it going to take you to find another Spica? And even if he's like kind of unhappy, I would, if I was a GM, I'd rather have a slightly unhappy Spica whose ego I have to manage than someone much worse who's happy. Most likely. I mean, there's always a limit. There's always a limit. But I don't think Spica is like, maybe that's who Jack was tweeting about and Spica needs to go. That's always another possibility, but we don't have insight on that.
We're talking. By the way, we need to really say Kays instead of Jack because nobody else outside of the space knows him as anything other than Kays.
C9 Jack is talking about TSM. What the fuck?
Not, you're confusing people.
Yeah. C9 Jack somehow submitted an internal player intensity report about Huni. Who would have guessed?
Oh my god. What? How intense was TSM players if they're offending C9? Okay.
Okay, so
oh yeah, go ahead, Jatt. Sorry,
I forget. Remind me very quickly what the. Oh, okay, it's a panic button tweet.
Yeah,
make sure my mic isn't spiking on you. I mean, I would love it if TSM had a panic button that worked. They can't press it. Like there's just. I was just thinking about it this whole call. There's nothing they can do. They're locked with the players that they have pretty much. Their
Maple
academy
was,
team,
yeah.
Like, if they had a good academy program, that's cool. But their academy coach last year was on the front page of Reddit for like a month. So now they have Xmithy there. But their record is not good. So it's not like they can do what the Immortals caller was saying and be like, by the way, just like put the academy AD instinct in instead of tactical. That doesn't feel like it's a super realistic option at the moment.
And
That's
the thing about TSM, I agree.
Yeah, and they're already importing Maple. They are also importing Mia, so there's nothing they can do. I don't know.
This was the panic button. They already pressed it.
It is actually so fascinating how much of a fall this org has taken in 18 months. Like, if you just look back to the beginning of 2021, it was before imports, before investigations, and before, back then it was like it's like, what's that mean? It's like, losing in league, Spica possibly leaving, wake up. Bjergsen's our new coach, and we're going to be really excited for 2021. We're headed to Worlds. Like, it's actually just insane to think about where things have gotten, because I think they used to be able to have panic buttons, like I think they were doing a decent, like a lot of the talent that's in the league right now came in through the academy system. I think Scoutmaster Parth did like a pretty good job. Like, there's just a lot that was going on with that team that was like, it's almost like a lesson, I feel like, to other teams. Like, if you're TL, you're C9, you're 100T, etc., you should probably be looking at TSM as like, hey, this is how bad things can get very quickly for you. And I don't know, this is fascinating.
Last thing I'll say on this is I don't think they are as bad as their current record. I think they're slightly better than 2-5. If I project their win rate out, partially because I was like pressured into putting them 5th place overall, but I think they're actually better than they were in spring. They were really bad, really, really bad in spring, and they're like just below average now.
Well, where did you have them on the power rankings, Jatt? Was it 5th or is it?
I didn't make a summer power ranking.
Oh, okay.
Coward.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. Guess you don't
can't be wrong.
Traffic.
Well, to Jatt's point about they were 0-4 and then went to 2-6 when they were like on fire last split, or something, right? They started 0-4. They hit the panic button and they kind of ended up 2-6 at one point, if I'm not mistaken. And even though they're only one loss away from that record, like you're saying, it doesn't feel as bad. Like, there's legitimate bright spots with Spica and Maple. I think this team can win a lot more games. I don't think Golden Guardians, Dignitas, Immortals, FlyQuest, they beat TL, like CLG. None of these teams are untouchable around them, and so they can do better. But
I worry more about. I agree they can do better. I agree that they're better than this. I do wonder for like Spica and Huni how how much like motivation did they have going into summer? And I'm down to hear that it was a lot, but also how quickly can you lose that motivation if you just had to go through that spring, and now you're going into summer and you start losing these games, and like at a certain point in time, do you just go like, oh yeah, dude, this shit's fucked. I'll do something else next year, but I guess for right now, I'm just finishing out my contract, And I'm not trying to shit talk those guys and say they're not trying, but it is just a situation where like when you're losing a lot and you don't feel like you can achieve what your goal is, like it is, I think, hard for any human to be able to like keep the try hard mentality up. So I don't know. Anyway, Seth, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we go on to our next caller?
Just want to shout out that I've been following League esports since like 2016, 2017, and since then I've been graduated college with a degree in humanities, and analyzing things from an analytical perspective has always been something I've loved doing. And I actually want to thank Mark C and Jatt for inspiring me for being analytically minded. You guys are a big inspiration for me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a little overrated. You're supposed to really just look at like narrative analysis and like that type of stuff. The other stuff to people. Anyway, thanks so much, Seth, for the call. Thanks so much, Seth, for the call. We'll catch you next time. Okay. Mark is off to grab the next caller. Thank you to NW Felton, Dimelock, CJ Foxy, Trevor Monreal, Aeon Rack, Carlitos, Boba Cola for 58 months. Holy moly. Kooks, Ari Waddle, Doja Cat's Armpits, and I Knew.
Love those.
I Newber. Thank you for all that. Captain Flyers in the chat backs me up, says just talk fast. Analysis is for brains. Exactly. Although did you guys, Jatt and Mark, were you guys listening to the cast where it was Flowers and Azale, and they were talking about what a skill floor or ceiling means? So I think it was after Champ Select or something like that.
Flowers,
and I think
was
Azale
right
was
for
wrong.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Azale's like, no. This is definitely the way it is, Captain Flowers.
He admitted that he might not know, but I also feel like Azale doesn't need to worry about floors usually.
Skill floors?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good at like all of the games he plays.
Every time I talk to him about a new game, I'm like, what'd you think? And he's like, oh, it's pretty good. And then I figure out how it worked, and like 10 minutes in, I fucking cruised through. The difficulty wasn't hard enough, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Every game he does on max difficulty.
Yeah.
Rawnblade is here. Rawnblade, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Sydney, Australia.
Sydney, Australia.
Nice.
Have you called in before?
Yeah, I've been on the show a couple of times.
Okay, I thought I remembered. How's Sydney right now?
Very wet, actually. We're getting like a month's worth of rain in 1 week.
Oh.
There's flooding.
Yeah,
I heard that has hurt the golf courses in Australia as well.
Golf is a terrible sport.
Let's go!
Rawnblade, thank you for calling in. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to talk about how golf is the opera of sport. No, okay. So my question is actually a nice question for Jack. So how do you think it's more of a question than a take. Jatt, how do you think your background in traditional sports fandom translates into your casting and analysis? And how do you balance that with making the broadcast fun for gamers?
Traditional sports? This guy was doing Guild
nice.
Wars competitively. What are you talking about, traditional sports?
Yeah, but whenever he does an interview, he's always talking about how he loves football and he loves basketball, and all his analogies are from like, football, Super Bowl.
1980s basketball teams that nobody... Yes, I agree. No, Jatt. Well, one, Jatt, do you have a background in sports? Did you ever do anything in sports? And two, back to the caller's question, which is, how does your passion inform your coverage?
Yeah, I think it actually is a very large part of how I developed my original style in casting, was because I was actually just trying to mimic a traditional sports broadcast, which I think in the early years definitely helped give esports a bit of a sense of legitimacy. So absolutely hugely informed. To Travis's question, I'm probably a bigger basketball fan now, but when I was like 15 to 18, I was way more into football because I played quarterback in Cranbrook, where I'm from. So I just like watched all of the NFL games and was always analytical and into stats in those games as well. But just like the dynamics between a play-by-play in color in football, how they'd always have a play-by-play and the color commentator is almost exclusively a former player or coach. which I tried to leverage that when I first started casting because I was like the only former pro player, even though pro was much different back then. And that's how I modeled my esports casting. And it's because I've just been a massive traditional sports fan my whole life.
Mark, I don't know if you, as another T-Sports fan, have anything you want to add to this.
I don't know. I feel like for me, T-Sports influenced my early coaching / analyst career more than it influenced my broadcasting career. I would say YouTube and dumb shit has influenced my professional in front of the camera career more than traditional sports has.
That's actually an interesting thing, because I think the take behind this question is maybe that, which is maybe a bit more antagonistic, which is to say that I feel like a lot of the times the content that I really love from any esports broadcast really is stuff that's much more League of Legends focused, I suppose, and that like dives into the game. And I wonder if sometimes the kind of traditional sports approach takes us away from that stuff and you know, doesn't play to the fact that if you're watching an LCS, LEC, whatever, like you're a hardcore League fan. There's no way that you aren't interested in the game. And so I wonder whether, you know, that the traditional sports background of people on various teams like pushes content away from that area. I don't know.
I think go ahead, Travis. No.
Oh, I was going to say, I like that Jatt does this for other people. Because whenever I'm watching players and he's like the Kawhi Leonard of this, I'm always like, I have no fucking clue. That it means nothing. You could say any name there, and that sentence is as useful to me as possible. But I do think that there are some traditional sports fans that follow League and esports, and like, I think as long as it's used sparingly, which I think Jatt usually does a pretty good job on. I think at finals there was a point in time where he said the same thing twice. In the opening of a show and also at the end of a show. I forget what the details were. Anyway, like most of the time, I think it works out really well. And like, especially whenever you're able to reference Jatt, somebody that like everybody knows, but like sometimes some of the folks I just don't know. But I think it's cool.
Tiger Woods.
Yeah, Tiger Woods. Yeah. If you're comparing somebody like, what, for about 5 years, everybody couldn't say Faker without saying Michael Jordan in the same sentence. Like, that got a little overused, but also everybody immediately understood what that meant. And so I think stuff like that is usually pretty helpful. But I don't know. Do you think it spooks people off, Ron? Because you are not American, presumably. You're calling from Australia with an Australian accent. Maybe it's rude of me to just assume. But like, is it annoying for you to ever hear people talk about like American T-sports and have no reference?
No, it doesn't annoy me. I think I'm more thinking editorially whether if the frame for what we do is a kind of traditional sports broadcast frame, like does that push you to make different editorial decisions about segments and content and stuff, as opposed to like the frame being people who love League of Legends, and that means the content we do is maybe more like focused on the game or like random things that relate to champions, etc., etc.
So I will say, my opinion on this is always evolving. So like, it's changed a lot, I would say, in the last 2 years, where towards the tail end of COVID, when Emily joined the broadcast, I had realized how bad we had become at telling player narratives. And that made me be a lot more conscious of when I talk about something, trying to make sure I'm telling it through the perspective of the player versus sometimes the champion or like things like that. Something recently I learned is that like 98%, and I don't know if this data is 100% accurate, but like the number I had gotten was some absurd 90-ish plus % portion of the viewer base are League players. And to your point, Rawnblade, about making about the game is something that I want to do more of. So like when I did my Shells segment this last weekend, which I forgot to tweet out, like it was talking about like a 2-unit, like two champion synergy that like you could take into solo queue in theory. And like, you know, I probably should have done a better job tying it into you, like viewers at home. Like, hey, if you want to do this at home, just fucking do this. You know, like I think that those segments do carry a lot of value. And so like I'm always changing. Like, is it good enough to just be funny and entertaining? Like, yeah, maybe. But like, hey, if our audience has this overlap, we should tailor it towards that. Or like, if people care way more about players than they do teams, why am I talking about if this team's going to beat that team? I should be talking about the players. And like, I'm trying to always evaluate like what I think is best.
Mark, the realization, really quickly, Mark, the realization you had about player narratives on the broadcast, was that because Emily's so bad at telling player narratives that when she joined, you're like, oh, this is not good?
No, what happened was we killed SOTs and we didn't have players.
Do you want to explain
on
what SOTs are?
We didn't have them do anything but post-game interviews in a 2-box, and we had no features because we were in COVID. Oh, sound on tape, which is basically like a post-match interview kind of thing, or pre-match recording rather than just interviews. Usually not like interview person, the interviewer's off camera, and it's like you're just getting their thoughts. Anyways, the point is we had almost no players in front of the camera for like 2 years, and I like didn't even realize that because I'm an idiot. And like once Emily came in, I don't remember if she pointed it out or she started talking about stuff. And then I realized it. I forget, but it was like I remember very distinctly, like being like, "Holy fuck!" I actually don't know the last time we had a player just speaking on broadcast in any like large capacity.
Okay, Jatt, you were gonna say?
I like this conversation, but I also don't know how long we should talk strictly about casting, because it literally takes so many twists and turns. Like in 2013 when we first started LCS. I felt like whenever I do educational content, it would like pop off, because I think there were so many new players and new viewers then. But then as LCS ages, you get more and more people who have been watching the game for 7 years or 5 years or 4 years. And I definitely noticed that educational content, the numbers just went down and down for me. Now, maybe there's a gap for it now, and if I brought back Teamfight Breakdown or something like that, it would get like a huge resurgent engagement. But it's just always hard to evaluate. It's super hard to get data on. But I also want to shout out Mark doing dumb shit was really good when we did Countdown. I really liked the balance we had back then when we, pioneered the LCS pre-show type content. Was a good combination of dumb shit and analysis.
Someone in Twitch chat had asked, do you ever wish you had a TNT style desk? And I would say Countdown 2018 was the closest to like a inside the NBA feel kind of thing.
And I think you can't even keep that for like a super long period of time. Inside the NBA is such a good desk, but I watched it with Raz when we were in spring finals. We just like watched some NBA playoffs, and it's like, they don't even do complicated shit on that desk. They just have such good chemistry before the 4 guys. Like their post game is literally like a highlight package, and then they talk for 7 minutes. And they're like, that's the best pre-show. I don't know why other people don't do that, because they don't have fucking Charles Barkley. Like, that's why they don't do it.
It's so funny. I remember Mark said that one time. We were on a walk or something like that. He's like, everybody compares us to this, and it's like, these are hilarious dudes that have been doing this for a decade together. Yeah. And like,
that's the other thing is like, there's so much turnover on the desk, and it's like Chuck and Ernie and Kenny. It's been like 20
almost
years.
20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, of course they got better.
That reminds me a lot of, one of the most popular pieces of interview content that people watch these days is Hot Ones. And everybody, for a while, people stopped doing this, but they're like, I just wish Travis interviewed like Hot Ones. And I'm like, oh, you mean interviewing fucking celebrities for a living that are like entertainers, where they were like pre-interviewed and then the whole interview is super clipped to just be like a highlight reel of all the funniest things people said? Yes, I too wish I did those types of interviews.
Travis is just salty that he's not Sean Evans. The same way that we're not Shaq, Travis needs to admit that he's not Sean Evans.
Sure. If you guys admit you're not Shaq, I'll admit I'm not Sean Evans.
I wish you were more like Conan O'Brien, Travis.
Oh, fuck. I wish I was like Conan O'Brien.
That's a better one. Yeah.
I really, really do. Whenever I was at Yahoo, I really wanted to film just a way less funny version of all of the videos he would do where he's interacting with his staff and like the interns and all those videos like that. Like, oh man, I grew up watching Conan, and like there are every now and then little bits of humor that I will try to put into things that are kind of born from watching his interviews growing up. But anyway, we're just digressing into craft stuff. Look, I know even Jatt called us out on how long we want to spend on this, but I do think the one final bit I want to get onto this is like, we're talking about T-Sports, we're talking about how much you're bringing in. I do think a huge amount of the LCS broadcast like tension over the past couple of years has been when LCS first started. It was, how do you create, for lack of a better phrase, the ESPN of esports, where like they're going to build it out. It needs to feel professional. Like, we're trying to basically establish the idea that like competitive games are just as serious as traditional sports, and like we're going to do all this stuff. I feel like what's been fascinating to me in the last couple of years is now there's almost like a really big push, including for myself, but other members of the community, to be like, ESPN is, God, I hate this term, but cringe. And actually, like, the broadcast needs to feel like, because the audience now, if you're trying to hit people that are in their 20s, it's no longer like, none of those people watch ESPN. They don't give a shit about it. They don't have cable. So now it's like pivoting the broadcast to a different direction. So I don't know if you guys had any quick thoughts on this stuff, because it's been such a big topic.
It's not just an esports thing, though. Like, almost across all sports media, lower production value is actually better. Like, it's gone reverse. It spent like 3 decades adding polish, and then in the last 5 years, it's like, yeah, you actually can't be polished because then you seem fake. Yeah, Pat McAfee is a good example. The rise of podcast content, like the amount of times you're listening to like Bill Simmons' podcast is like one of the most popular sports podcasts in the world, and in the podcast that you were listening to as a viewer, he's like, Kyle, turn the camera on. That's just in the podcast because they're gonna go make a YouTube clip. That would never be acceptable 5 years ago for anyone. But that's just like kind of what people want now. It's a weird switch. And I agree with your take. It's once you've proven that esports can be cool, like, you don't have to prove it anymore. So what's next?
Yeah.
And like, that's a hard question to answer.
That's one thing I think people give a lot of flack for, the old days, where it's like, it was trying to be ESPN because no one had done something like it. Yeah, no one had really done, like, I know that there were other, I'm not trying to say League was the birth of esports and like professionalism. Obviously, when you look at LCK or OGN back in the day and stuff like that, like, that existed before. But a lot of, for North American fans, like, a lot of people probably hadn't seen something like that, and to see it be so legitimate was good. But now, yeah, esports is big, Twitch is big, we all fucking get it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a period of time, I think, in the beginning where there was like almost like the nerds clamoring to get like recognition. You know, it's like, no, we are cool. Like, this is real. Like, every time any like news article came out about League esports, it would be on the subreddit, and people would be like, oh my God, oh, they got this wrong, they got this one, but oh my God, it's so cool that like the LA Times wrote about like League esports or something, and now we have a fucking awesome show by CBS that nobody's watching. So, you know, it's nothing proves anything anymore.
Who says nobody's watching, Travis? Maybe it's got a huge audience in Brazil and you just don't realize it.
Well, it's a good point.
And
maybe we should invest in Brazilian teams.
People need to watch it.
Okay, Rawnblade, thank you so much for the call. You sent us down memory lane and side tangents and all this stuff. So it was a great topic. Anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
Yeah, just quickly to close it out, I just wanted to say, I don't think that like league-focused content, stupid shit, like, I think all these things can be combined. I think Science Speedway was like super fun thing that I really enjoyed that the broadcast did. LEC Pop Quiz is all about like champion ability names and things, and that's like, you have to know about the game a lot to enjoy that, but then it's it's super fun. Like, pros don't know anything about the game, they play all day. It's like really enjoyable. But so just wanted to chuck that out there. But in terms of shout out to players, which I'm really enjoying. I think the only thing that is not, obviously it feels almost so realistic that it doesn't feel like a show. I'm kind of like, it just feels like I'm watching, one of the team's documentaries, but just with way better access and production values. The only thing I will say is that I think for the other teams in the LCS where their players don't feature in the storyline so much, I feel like that's the only slight misstep, is they all seem to be like 30-year-old white guys that are playing on the other LCS teams, which was the only thing that slightly jarred me. But yeah, anyway, I really am enjoying the show, and shout out to that. And shout out to Mark. I was on a work call when he initially pulled me in, so he was very patient with me while I waited in the waiting room. So thanks, Mark, for still having me.
Yeah, super patient. Every time I came in there, cussed you out. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Rawnblade. We'll catch you next time.
Catch ya. Bye.
All right, time for a quick break to talk about Grubhub. Thank you so much to Grubhub for sponsoring this show. I'm trying to decide right now if I just want to announce it. I haven't talked.
I've been doing so many Grubhub orders from Lemonade recently. Anyways, go announce your thing. Yep.
I need to give you more credit because you have. I haven't given you credit.
It's getting low. Yeah, I need some soon.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, glad to hear it.
Daddy, please.
Yeah. Get your free Lemonade orders. So shout out to Grubhub first off for doing this. Also, I think I'm just going to YOLO this and say. I'm just going to say it. We have been working on a series with Grubhub, and we've recorded the first 2 episodes of it. We're going to do 6 episodes of it this year, and it's called Dinner With. And for those of you, if there's anybody here from like far long time ago that remembers like Chipotle with Double Lift, I did like an interview with Scara where we just get food and chat over the food. They're long form interviews, and the first 2 people are Kobe. He's in episode 1, and Broden is in episode 2. And we shot it last week, and so it'll take a little bit to get these things out. But Grubhub made it possible, and we order Grubhub, and we eat, and we just talk about stuff. Very cool long form interviews. So if there's people in particular you would like to have on in the show in the future, please feel free to make suggestions because we haven't locked in who we want for the next 4 episodes. But it's also really cool because of their support. We're able to do it kind of fancy. So part of the reason I'm sharing this is because it's the first time since, I don't know, like 2019 or 2018 where TGI was able to do like a full team where we had, 6 or 7 people out there. We rented a pure space and had like so it looks really cool. And it was awesome to be building this out as something that TGI was producing. So my goal for it was make it look better than the Riot Grubhub pieces. So please let me know if you think it's better. But yeah, it should be very fun. And with Broden and I know some of you guys don't know him, but he used to work for me, and now he's become much more famous than me. He's joined Offline TV and is like a member of that. So we have a lot of talk and reminiscing about whenever I used to get him into parties, and then this past week I went to the Offline TV party and he had to get me in, and it was a fun show. So stay tuned for that. We're hoping to get one out sometime in July, maybe soon. We'll see how long the edit takes. But thank you to Grubhub for sponsoring the show and for sponsoring this and for allowing us to do some really cool stuff. Absolutely love having them on as partners. Okay, some more subs while Mark is grabbing the next caller. Kylo Zen, iNuber, Coinshot Quoth, who had said that my tweet about Dragonsteel Con and Worlds is a mood. I hope I see some people at Dragonsteel Con this year if I get to go. Striker Luke, Tim Diaz, and Old Slice of Bologna. Thanks, everybody. And just perfect timing. Mark is back with The Classy. The Classy, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take was that TL will be the team to kind of go on a rampage after this 2-week break, and they will finish first in the regular season.
Sorry, they're going to go on a rampage?
Yeah, like I think that they're gonna do super well and come out clearly on top of the regular season.
Why do you think this?
So I think that clearly they're the team with the most to lose and the highest expectations. So I think, and the players are super experienced, and so I think that they're going to be able to kind of turn it on. Also, I think that their schedule coming up kind of lends itself to that. So they do play EG next week, but they play Golden Guardians, and then they've got a game against, or not next week, but whenever we get back from the break, Golden Guardians and IMT coming up, TSM. So some games that I think they'll definitely win, and then I think that they're just going to kind of turn it on when they need to, because they're going to have to. Otherwise, this will be a super big disappointment for them. So
their next set of games are Golden Guardians, as you said, and EG, and then they play that following week Immortals and CLG. So considering how you feel about where CLG's at, and then TSM and Cloud9 in those next week. So
all right, Team Liquid.
I
was gonna say, all right, Team Liquid Jatt. Let's hear it. Is this guy right, or is he delusional TL copium?
I could see it. I should.
There's no definitives only. You can't. Well, maybe that's the Travis angle.
Yeah, just don't make any waves, man. I think they will probably win the LCS, and that would be a yes. But yes, I think they're going to do that thing. However, it is very suspicious that they've had this lull in week 2 and 3. Like, that's a big red flag for me. I'm not going to give you a hot take, Mark. I'm in the middle.
I thought they were going to win after week 1. I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely the best team.
Exactly.
They're going to win.
Dude,
and then like the last 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, I think EG's going to win.
I thought they were going to win before Danny stole. Like, just the mood on the desk before that Baron steal happened was like, oh, I guess TL is just going to win then. Like, this series is just going to be a TL thing. Part of it is just like the reputation of the players that makes you just think they're going to win because you've seen them win so many times in the past.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, Mark did say that Core JJ is overrated, so that might be...
Ooh.
Yeah.
Was that to appease Vulcan?
I had asked him about it, and I said, you can both be an incredible player and be overrated. And I said, yeah, maybe there's some times where casters and stuff just assume that he's the best support when maybe that's not true in that like a time frame. And then I did a blame you about it. But I actually was putting the heat on TL like week 1 where I was like, show me that you're great. Go out there and destroy kids. And they did that week 1 against admittedly not super strong competition. But I was like, all right, that looked really good. I'm bought in. And then they immediately flop again. I'm like, all right, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm out until they actually win the title. I'm off the hype. I'll still predict them to win a bunch of games because they're good. But like, nah.
Right. You're no longer predicting them to win the title. You're like, you're switching to EG.
Yeah, I might have done EG anyways, but like I'm hotter on EG and C9 at this point by a pretty considerable margin. I think TL are just like they haven't found that next gear in basically any time except play-ins when like half the teams weren't even breathing yet. Mm-hmm. So I think they're doomed. I got them back.
Oh, okay. Mark's so upset with this conversation. He's just left.
What's your take, Travis?
No, I mean, that was my take, which was what I said earlier, which is like after week 1, I was like, TL wins this because they figured out their shit. And like after having this weird kind of will they, won't they scenario in spring, they actually got it together during the boot camp. And when I interviewed them, they're like, oh man, we went on this Korea boot camp. It was amazing. It solved everything. Everything's amazing. We all love each other and we're going to kill everyone. And then they just like show up and suck in week 2 and week 3. And when I say suck, I mean compared to their own metric, it's kind of like the Core JJ overrated thing. But like, so now I'm just like, all right, this team they can't actually get it together. They're just they're gonna be consistently good, but I still feel like EG will come in and swing, or maybe Cloud9 could like pop off at the end of the split once they've like had a ton of practice. But if I had to bet right now, I'd bet EG over TL.
These things are hard to talk about, but I'll use an example of I'm a true Redditor here. I read a Reddit comment criticizing something Cadril said on an Euphoria podcast. So I didn't listen to...
This is a rabbit hole.
Yeah. I didn't listen to the podcast.
That's right. This is the true LCS fan experience. Okay, go on.
Yeah, a lot of people only read comments, which is awful, but I'm going to do the same thing right here. And then make content about the content. Okay. Yes. But this was before LEC playoffs in spring. And Cadril had basically said, oh yeah, I think G2's going to win. And the comment was like flaming him. He was like, he didn't give any good reasons. He just said he thinks Caps and Yankos are going to be good in playoffs, even though there's nothing to show in spring split that they are going to be good, blah, 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 blah. And then like, yeah, they won playoffs, but like there was actually nothing you could point to in recent memory that would say that that is the case. Like you can't point to like, oh yeah, remember when Bjergsen smashed lane? Like it just hasn't really happened that much, or like Bwipo's inconsistent, or Core JJ hasn't won a title in 5 splits, and Santorin hasn't won a title since 2015. But like, there's also this like, I don't know, like intrinsic feeling that you can have when you think a bunch of good players are together, but you literally cannot make an objective case for it. Even though in the LEC Reddit comment, like Cadril was right. Oh yeah, by the way, they're gonna have Caps in playoffs. That's huge. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, they're going to have Core JJ. Like they're still going to have all these amazing players in playoffs. That's going to be good.
It's called copium, and sometimes the copium comes through.
But it's like it's somewhat based in the past, right? It's based in it's happened before-ish. So it's not a strong argument. I'm willing to admit that.
You're using historical data, which is perhaps less accurate these days.
You say you're a true Redditor, Jatt, but I think it is right now a hot take to say TL's still going to win the split.
Yeah.
You said it's not hot, but I think that is a hot take based off of the current sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have cooled.
Enough people call me biased, so don't put that in there.
Do you guys think the default for fans right now is EG?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I agree with that. I'm going to poll the Twitch chat right now. It's just not representative of...
Empire's just spamming no double if no win. I'm going to have to start saying that more. I don't know. It's one of the reasons, too, is like you just want to be proven wrong. Like, I want to doubt, and then I want them to prove me wrong. I'll be the fucking bulletin board material that they can dunk on when they win a title.
Really? I think it's actually so boring if TL wins. Like,
I want them to be good though for like international like reasons and stuff. You know, like I don't want them to. If they win in a boring way, I'll agree with you. If they win by like how that 100 Thieves game went, you know, where they're both just fucking doing nothing, and then they win like a 5-game series like that, then I'll be fucking pissed, even if they are the champion. But like, I want the week 1 TL. Like, where did that go?
Yeah, no, exactly.
You did things. I don't know.
That is a far more like the most interesting rivalry you can have in the league right now, in my opinion, is EGTL, where like they go into finals and it's crazy, and it's like all these old decrepit players playing against the young bucks, you know, and you've got like JoJo shit, like you've got Sorn over there being like, yeah, you know, I think that they're really good players, and so it's not something that we could ever say. And then you got JoJo picking up the mic and just being like, these guys suck and they're old and we're gonna crush them. And then like that's the team that goes into final, or that's the match that goes into finals. And then like I don't even care at that point in time who wins, as long as it's a sick 5-game series. But that's why like I want TL to be good, because I want our two teams that I think are most representative of like these competing ideologies in the league and competing, you know, generations or whatever, to be the two teams that like are facing off and are competing for the league. And anyway, you can check that out on the final episode of Players this split, as I have guest script written for that. Oh no. Okay, where are we? Are we done with this? The class series still here?
Yeah.
Emily,
meat on the bone.
Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said, yeah, I think we've chewed all the meat on the TL bone.
Emily gave one more question. She DM'd me and asked, do me a solid and ask Jatt if he thinks it's a good idea for NA and roster building if TL just win anyways.
No, that's probably not good. Yeah, it's probably not good.
They threw money at the problem and it worked.
Man, like, I want there to be more teams that win with players that they sign to their own org as their like first pro experience. That's the coolest story to me. It's part of why like basketball analogy incoming. The Golden State Warriors were such like way more interesting to watch win a title this year than when they had Durant, because it felt like they won with their guys rather than just let's go sign the best player that grew up somewhere else. And like right now, TL is 5 of the best players that all grew up somewhere else. So like it's just a hard story to tell to make it cool.
Agreed. I think that's fair. All right. Oh, wait, hang on. I just got a message from Emily too. This one says, do me a solid and ask Mark when he's going to start wearing deodorant on the analyst desk. Mark, is that something that... All right, you guys can...
No, the problem is the diaper that I wear.
Classy, were you anything you want to shout out before we go on to the next caller?
Yeah, shout out to Alienware and Grubhub as always, and shout out to the 3 of you. I really like watching your content, things like that. Also, lastly, shout out to Woo and all the boys in the Impolite Discord. Thanks, guys.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks.
All right. We got 2 more callers left. By the way, I've noticed a disturbing trend with the callers. For the first 3.5 years that I did the show, callers basically always shouted out our sponsors at the end. And I don't know if they're taking it for granted yet, but I just want to let you guys know that that's like a really great way that I actually renew this show. And so our next caller is here. Carlitos is here. Carlitos, where are you calling from?
Hey, what's up? I'm calling from Portland, Oregon.
What would you like to talk about on the show tonight?
Yeah, so a bit of a hot take here. I'm going to say using stats for anything other than narratives is borderline trolling. So a little background or context to this. So I work as like a data analyst, so really into analytics, did a math degree, really love statistics and whatnot. But I think with the way like League works and whatnot, like there's just so much dirty data, like you can't really isolate a lot of like instances and variables, and like it's just really hard to draw like real insights. And so we rely on people who are like pros and whatnot to use their like eye test and intuition. And so I think stats are really cool for narratives, but like good teams have players with good stats, bad teams, it's really hard to have good stats for players. So yeah.
I would just like to say in this moment, fuck you to everyone who comments and says we don't ever have good callers, because this show has had banger callers tonight. Okay, so you say just enhance it, just use the stats for the narratives, and that's it. You don't actually really... Let me ask you, Carlos, do you believe that people can moneyball in LCS? Is there a way, like, can you do, like, based off of this, I know you say you can only use it for narratives, but should teams be looking at stats or using stats to try to find talent?
I mean, I think like solo queue, maybe. I think my problem is more around like really trying to use stats to decide like who the best player in the LCS is. Like if you're Bjergsen, oh, maybe Bjergsen's a bad example since TL's been losing. But like if you're on the best team, like you are just always gonna have better stats. Like you're winning. Like of course you're gonna have better stats, you know? So I think that's more my issue. And so trying to moneyball like and try to pick up the best players in the league just based on their stats, I think is like a bit troll. But maybe if you're looking at
solo queues, so Moneyball's horseshit, and anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is obviously trolling. Like we don't like, especially in the league scene. I think everyone can get along with that. That's not a spicy take. But not wanting to use stats for any analysis is what you're basically saying. There's a spectrum between like stats is the holy grail, which is like the Moneyball approach, and then there's don't fucking talk stats. And you're kind of in that one, actually, saying don't do it at all, other than just being like, oh, this guy's leading the league in kills. Cool. You know, like you just want it as like little factoids, but you don't want any actual like analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at certain outliers is really cool. So, for example, like you look at ULCS last year or the year before, and Alfari was on the 10th place team, but like had crazy good stats, like was on like first team all-pro top laner. I think like that is super cool, and like stats there mean a lot because like you should be towards bottom of the pack being on the last place team. So the fact that you even have good stats like means a ton. But like I think you have to put in some sort of weight. Like if you're on a good team, of course your stats can be a little good, and so you have to kind of weight it down. So I just think blindly looking at the stats there is like pretty troll.
I have a lot of feelings about this, so I shouldn't go first. I feel like Jatt should go first. Yeah, or someone else should go first. And Travis, I don't think really uses stats.
I loved your
much.
energy.
No, I actually do have some stuff to chime in on with this stuff because I think it's really fascinating. Here, I'll just throw this out here to set context, and then you guys can like nerd out between the two of you.
Okay.
I think what's most fascinating to me about this take is that we just had EG win, and EG is heavily pushing their stuff. Their data right now and how much they use today. So like they just did so Nicole just did on the 20th of June an article with Washington Post came out where it's titled Evil Geniuses Wants Data Not Money to Determine Success in Esports, and talking a lot about how they've been using data, and I know this is broader than just League, and so maybe we should only talk about League, but it's just fascinating to me because you have, and they're not the only ones, but like in this, for instance, she's talking about how in League of Legends they have tools that can simulate pick and ban probabilities and how they draft, and how like you shouldn't necessarily have to rely on a coach's intuition or be completely reliant on a coach. There's just like a bunch of stuff in here about how they're doing this. They have a side business called Factor that they have pushed as like a big data thing for esports, especially League. And then like again, there's these other teams that have also talked a lot about data and stats, oftentimes with corporate partners involved. But I think it's fascinating to see the dichotomy of this, and that's I wanted to set that context because people might not know before both of you guys talk about how stats and data is useless.
Yeah, I would say that I would hard disagree that any use of stats is trolling.
Big agree with that.
I would say that of big sports, if we're just going to lump it in with, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, basketball, League has the worst stats by far. By far. So there, you have to try really hard. Like eye test is the number one, but you actually also have to eye test stats. But I actually do think they can help. There's a few that end up being useful once you've eye tested them. Because even let's take baseball, who has what many people consider like the best possible stats because it's such an isolated game. Like in the 90s, people cared about RBIs, which was like the most trap garbage baseball stat ever. It was like literally how many batters have you had run home, which is completely dependent on how good the rest of your team was because they were on base in the first place, right? But people literally thought like, oh yeah, we got to get this guy. He had 100 RBIs. Like he's super good. So like even in games with good stats, you can interpret stats wrong.
Well, and like in baseball, the fucking place that you play at matters. Like you just can't hit home runs in like certain places as easily as others. And so a bunch of people had juiced up numbers because they played in stupid fucking fields that made it super easy and things like that. So like everything's going to have factors that if you don't control for properly, you fuck up. And this is my big take with stats is that as much as we like to pretend stats are an objective measure of reality, which they are, the person who sets how you measured reality is a human. And so the person who sets what stat you want is a human. The person who determines how you interpret that number is a human, and what it means is a human. And so any problem you have with stats is almost entirely based off the person who either made the stat or the person who's reading the stat to you and what they're the conclusion that they're trying to draw. You can have garbage stats because you just made a stupid stat. Like CSD at 2 minutes. Okay, that's a fucking stupid stat. It's been one wave. I really don't care. Maybe it'd be a fun thing to talk about. Like, who wins level 1 push the most? But then, like, the thing that you have to factor in with League is champions and starts. Like, does this team fucking leash for their jungler every time because their jungler's a greed lord who starts on blue buff and you gotta, or like bot side of the map and you gotta.
Which weirdly, Mark, it's a useless stat, but it could actually inform. Like, it's a shortcut to noticing something.
Right, and that I think is the big thing that stats do is they fix a lot of your biases if you're using them correctly. I can assume that someone's really good because I watch them, but like maybe there's some part of their game that I'm not noticing that they're actually quite bad at, or vice versa. A player that I don't think is very good is actually doing quite well. Like Fox is someone who I largely ignore, but then when I was digging into his numbers, I realized he actually has really good kill participation. He is around his jungler a lot, and then when I rewatch the games, it's because he's like sacking waves, even though his CSD is dog water. His goal difference isn't that bad because he influences the map with contracts, and he sacks his individual farm to like go make plays. And like I'm using stats as partly narrative to tell the story of how he plays the game, but that also is still analysis at the same time. And so like I think you can use stats intelligently, and a lot of the times that people have problems with it, it's really the people and like. Sometimes as a broadcaster, it's my communication of my own thought process is poor. Like I could reach a good conclusion, but I skip a bunch of the steps because I have 2 minutes to talk about it, and I can't show myself digging around in spreadsheets for 2 hours and then be like, that's how I did it, guys. Like you kind of just say the thing. And I think that's what some people in chat, like Ender, were talking about. Like the way broadcast uses stats is inherently going to be a little different than how a team can use stats and some of their like advanced metrics and things like that.
Carlitos, your rebuttal to all of this. Bring him down.
No, I mean, I think that like makes a lot of sense. I think where like I would largely like disagree is like when like teams try to do like the hot buzzwords of like they use machine learning models or like these data scientists and stuff. Like literally as somebody who like does that, like that's actually fucking stupid. Like you won't be able to convince me that like they're getting real insights from that. Like, and I think like what you're saying like totally makes sense of you use the stats to like make you think to look in an area. And then like you were saying with Palafox, like it made you look at him and he passed your eye test, but like his stats didn't suddenly make him this inherently good player. And for you to really know he was good, he had to pass your eye test. So like, I would like definitely agree with what you're saying. Like stats can definitely inform you like where to look for that eye test. But yeah, I think all the like, especially the machine learning and data science shit is like, that's actually troll.
Carlitos, have you? Can you explain really quickly why it's for because I know Mark and Jatt are big data folks, but we have a lot of people who don't. Why is that stuff troll?
Yeah, so I think when you're working with data, like the big thing is you want sample size and you want really clean data. And so part of having clean data is having data that you've collected in very like isolated scenarios that don't have things that could be affecting it. And so it's something with League where you have 10 players on a map and every stat is like really interconnected with each other, and just very small sample size across actual games in the LCS. There's just not enough data or information for a model to really think and come up with real conclusions. And so I think that's like why it's super troll.
And a lot of the times in machine learning things, you have to like train the AI to know what to think. And that is going to weight it to think certain ways. And then like all these problems that he's talking about, like a lot of the times you're just telling it what to think anyways. And then like confirmation biasing yourself because you used data that you already thought was like it's very like a lot of people trap themselves with machine learning things by like how they train the AI to then try and read the new data and stuff like that. And it's a fucking mess.
So yeah, I have one
true. Like a machine's not smart enough to think like, oh, it's winning a ton. Like we should purposely lower the stats a degree. Like this player is only getting this good of stats because they're winning.
I have one tiny tangent here, which is one area that I do think that they could use a lot of this data on, and at least I'd like to gut check Carlitos against this. So my understanding is that in T-Sports, especially in NBA, they use data a ton to figure out the best way to build a show and a broadcast and to sell seats and to get people engaged and all this stuff. And from my understanding, this is an area where Riot, a digital company with access to theoretically far more data than the NBA could have, given how so much of NBA viewership is on traditional television or T-television and at bars and all that type of stuff. Like, I'm curious if you think that a lot of that data could be used to help build better shows and broadcasts and to know how long to have ads and all that type of stuff.
I think definitely, yeah. So it's much more in like the marketing analytics and whatnot, which I think is a really well-developed space, which also makes it really good for this sort of thing. Like even the company now, like we do random live streams for products we do, and we do analytics on that and whatnot. So I think there's definitely a lot more of a place for that. But like esports, there's just not as much of an analytics scene built up in that way. Whereas like marketing and broadcast stuff there is, and would love to see Riot do that. Would your
company be able to work for them?
Probably not, but maybe.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much for the call. Oh, Mark.
One final thing I want to shout out is like the people making stats is also really important. I hope teams do intelligent things because you can usually just like grunt work to the point about like having machines do it. Or like all those buzzwords. I don't like that. But I remember the funniest stat that I ever heard was one day Parth just sat behind Wild Turtle in scrims watching him play Ashe, and how often he would just shoot his fucking arrow up mid lane to be like, 1 in 10, I hit him, and we can maybe get a flash. And Parth counted like for a week how often, it was something like that, how often he actually connected these, and it was like 2. And he was like, just hold it in lane for fucking presence, you idiot. It was so funny hearing him tell this story about how he had to like, because Turtle didn't believe him. He was like, no, this is so much better this way. And then he actually like, crunched the numbers, did the stats of how often his rando arrows actually hit anyone. And he was like, this is such a waste of a cooldown. Just hold it. You have more presence in the game by holding it.
Thank you so much, Carlitos, for the call.
Help.
Anything you want to shout out before we go on to our last caller?
Yeah, shout out to the sponsors, Alienware and Grubhub. Shout out to you guys for, a fun conversation and chat. And shout out to my boy Austin. I'm pretty sure he listens. So glad I got on here.
Shout out to Austin. Thanks so much, Carlitos. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.
All right, we are off to our last caller. Endercast in the chat sent a Prime and said, according to stats, not enough people are using their Twitch Prime subscription to twitch.tv Travis Gafford, come on, people do better. So there you go. Thank you to Spencer Neutron, tier 3 sub for 51 months. Pokemon has a lot of those. I have one, and it's you, Spencer. Chula Pakraba and Retropane and Farmer Ginge. Thank you, everyone, for the subs. Okay. Omar is here. Omar, where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from Ontario, Canada.
Ontario,
nice.
Canada. How sad are you about were you going to go to Worlds?
Very, very sad, actually. I'm very sad about the news.
I'm so sorry. What is it? What you're calling on about, or what did you want to talk about tonight?
I'm actually calling about a different topic, and that's CLG will finish top 3 and go to Worlds this year.
Oh boy, here we go.
There it
I've just
is.
been saying so much good stuff about our callers, and then, all right. So top 3. Where do you think? You think they're placing 3rd? If you had to bet?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. What is giving you this confidence? Because this past weekend, you could have called it last week with this take, and I think
I would have hopped off the hype train last weekend, but
yeah.
I still believe. I believe in Dokla. I believe in Luger. I mean, Luger's been good all year. And then the resurgence of contracts. I mean, I don't want to do the classic rundown every player, but
yeah.
you know how it goes.
The classic.
No, it is the classic for
Right,
Hotline League. You ask them, and then they literally do every single player. Thank you. You can tell you're a seasoned Hotline League viewer by realizing that. So you just think the players are good, and that's
I think it'll be
players.
EG, TL, C9, and then CLG. That's the top 4, and then I'm hoping that CLG can win it out and be in the top 3.
And who would they replace? C9 in that scenario?
DL, right?
They would replace 100 Thieves in that case.
Oh, 100 Thieves. Sorry. Okay.
So it's EG, TL, and Cloud9 with CLG all in top 4. That's my take.
Final quick question. What is giving you hope after this weekend where they went 0-2 against their main competition kind of in C9 and TL?
I
don't know. I just believe. I wish I had a better answer.
Faith age, baby.
You don't have faith. Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll help the caller out by saying they fucking had COVID. Contracts was tweeting about how painful it was and how fucked up he was while playing, and I actually think there's a separate conversation we don't have time for on this episode to talk about the weirdness where you can have a player on your team have be just really, really sick and still have to play them, or that's where we're at in the league. But I think that you can argue that the team is playing in a pretty huge deficit right now because of where they were this week, where they weren't able to be on stage, where they were at least Contracts was sick. I don't know who else is sick, but that's why they get the pass for this week, maybe.
Jatt, do you have any CLG faith still?
No.
None.
No.
Damn.
Did you have any? At any point
I'm trying to hold myself back. I have so many pithy one-liners.
Ooh,
give us some.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Contracts had COVID and that made him play normal. Because he made the same mistakes in that game as he did in all of Spring Split. And it sucks. I had COVID as well, when I got stuck in Germany for MSI. So maybe it actually did hurt them a lot. And I think they actually are improved, but I see them being a 8-win team. Emily says, Jatt, I did once have CLG faith, actually. There was a split when I put them first when they signed Rainover.
Oh, that was the worst.
When they signed Rainover. That was a bad call. That was a really bad
You're
call.
still reeling from that.
Oh, I remember that.
Never again.
Because I think it got memed on all split long. It's yeah.
Well, and they didn't just they weren't the number 1 team. They were awful.
It was meant to be a spicy pick, and then they finished 7th.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. The first week of Hotline League this split, we had a caller that called in, said they believe in CLG, and then I popped off and I was like, no, I don't believe in them. They're uninteresting. It's not worth talking about them, blah, blah, blah. Mark was very upset with me for that take.
Yep.
And scolded me. And then the next week, in week 2, they looked really good again. And Dokla came on the show, and I apologized. And now I'd like to rescind my apology because then they do this in week 3, and I should have known. I should have just stuck with it.
They played EG
and been
they're
they're fucking
TL.
imposters. They're fucking
not
imposters. Mark, are they going to Worlds?
No, but no one said they were, other than
The caller said they would. Right now, we're having somebody now who's saying they will.
None of the analysts were saying that. Like Raz was like, yeah, sure, they're in my top 5 with a gun to his head. He said that. You know, like I said that they deserved credit for pulling themselves up out of like the dumpster from like and going from 8th to 6th with just Dokla coming in, which is probably where I think they're going to land, like 6. Is still an improvement, and I think it's cool to talk about. I don't have to. This is the whole problem, Travis. Is if a team's not top 3, you think there's literally nothing to talk about.
That's not true at all. That's not true at all. I've been very excited about a lot of other teams before that are not top 3.
Why are you not interested in CLG now? Just because they dropped 2 games to the other top teams in the league?
I'm more interested than I was in week 1, but I will say it does feel very. I do feel a little baited, where like I was told to get on the hype train and stay on the hype train, and then after week 2 it fucking crashed. The moment
you just didn't know what you bought a ticket for. Just read the ticket when you buy the hype train ticket.
What
it
is
did
the
not
hype,
say top 3.
What is the hype train for this, Mark?
Top 6, not top 3. You got on the
wrong
hype
train. I should be excited if CLG gets 6th place this split.
Yeah, when they were 8th before, and they looked terrible, and other teams made roster moves around them, and all they did was bring in Dokla, and Palafox and contracts are playing better. Like, yeah, you can be excited about that. It's okay to be excited about a team and players doing okay. It's okay.
This team was 10th a lot. So 6th is a big improvement.
All right,
I get it. I have to read
Raz's Twitch message. It's so funny. He goes, I think they're top 5 because the bottom 6 sucks.
Yeah.
But if then they're in the bottom 6 if they're just top 5, Raz. The math doesn't work.
Okay. Let's.
He goes, no, that's my point. Yeah. I mean, the point is that there's a clear top 4, and whoever's in your 5th spot is like a step down. And if CLG's 5th versus 6th, you know, like it's all pretty competitive. And I just think, I don't know, it's fun. It's fun to see where they're gonna land. I think they'll bounce back, and then other people will be like, oh wow, look, they're not, who do they play next week? Immortals, dub, 100 Thieves, they go 1-1. They still got a positive record through the first round robin at 5-4.
I want to see them do more swapping. The only way they get to top 3 is if they do more swapping. Like, this team has like 100 coaches and an academy team and an LCS team.
And you think they should play the coaches?
Sure. Let's get them in there. No, I just mean like if Contracts actually has COVID, like throw your academy guy in there. Like you should have enough familiarity with the systems you run as a team and have like enough collaboration with your like 20-person staff that you can pull that out. Because I still believe that academy teams were
at this company at the beginning of this year.
They're all new. They're all new people. Yeah.
So maybe that's an argument for why things aren't as solidified over there. I don't know. All right, Omar, thank you so much. I'm sorry. What do you think of all of our reactions to this?
I don't know. The jerseys look sick. That's all I gotta say back.
Fantastic. All right, thank you so much. Anything you want to shout out before we say goodbye?
Alienware and Grubhub. I mean, it's called Skip here, but wish the code worked. I started a league esports show called A Week in League. Check it out.
What do you talk about?
I cover all the 4 major regions, like on a weekly basis.
Were you the one that posted it to Reddit a while ago?
I did, yeah, that's me.
I saw your thread. Yeah.
Okay, I made it to top 10.
A Week in League, everybody. All right, thanks so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time. All right. So that is the show. Mark Zimmerman, what do you want to plug? What do you want to shout out? Nothing. Just get me out of here.
I was about to shout out Resident Refresh coming out tomorrow. We had a good episode with Emily on it. Blame Game, I don't know when it's coming out this week. I haven't done it yet.
How do you want to handle the fact that there's no league next week for you to Blame Game?
I'm going to do one this week for sure. It's just like it's going to be like a little delayed, probably coming out on Thursday.
Yeah.
Next week, I think I just want to see if there's anything to cover news-wise.
Okay.
And maybe just do a news one.
TSM
I'm also going to be doing some other, like I'll probably do one of the drunk player rating streams. It's not 4th of July. I used to do them on 4th of July, but I have like extra time off, so why not just get day drunk and slap arbitrary numbers on players?
Because when it was you and Scar doing that, it didn't seem sad. But if it's just you drunkenly alone in a room, like
where's Kobe? You guys are leaving.
We're going to Vegas. We invited you to Vegas. You're welcome to go with us. Jatt, by the way, if you want to go to Vegas, a bunch of us are going to Vegas. It's not your scene, I don't think, but maybe there's golfing out there. I don't know.
There is.
There's actually a lot of golf in Vegas, and a lot of semi-professional golfers live in Vegas because there's 2 TPC courses and no state income tax.
Well,
housing's also really cheap.
Yeah.
If you want to come out to Vegas,
golf.
we're leaving on Thursday. Ender's going, and did I not invite Emily? You can come. I invited Kelsey. I guess I didn't invite you. But Emily, didn't we just talk about how on Resident Refresh how we always are supposed to invite you and Mark, and then like you guys always tell us to fuck off? So I should now. No one invites me to things. Says the woman who never says she's gonna go whenever you invite her. Sorry, you want to go, Jatt?
Anyways,
I actually have plans. I'll tell you about them after.
After what?
Yeah.
Oh, after
the
Mark's
show.
done?
I'm not gonna.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to say them now?
No.
Well, I'm gonna keep the stream on, so.
I'll DM you. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Do I get to do shout-outs? Do I get to do shout-outs?
Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna stream some point this week. I'll probably be drunk, but I have to do Blame Game first, so I don't know if that's Wednesday or Thursday. The end.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Check out JLXP, the YouTube sensation of 2022. Everybody's watching it. I talk about League and sometimes other stuff, but mainly League. Otherwise, I'd churn the viewers.
JLXP, Jatt League Experience. That's the name of the show.
The Joshua Leesman Experience, because he needs to make League content to talk about NBA content, and he just slowly is going to, like, the ratio is slowly going to shift until it's just an NBA podcast.
NBA and golf.
Whenever I look at the viewer analytics and like my golf or NBA conversation peaks up, I'm making its own channel. Like that's going to happen.
You don't even need to do that. You just need to notice whenever the demographics move from 20s and early 30s to 40s and 50s, and then you'll know that you have shifted your audience.
If anyone knows some good title sponsors as well, I am in the market. I noticed this is Grubhub and Alienware. That would be interesting. Second shout out, golf stuff. I would love to be able to do a what's in the bag with sponsored golf clubs to tell you how good they are, or a golf bag. That would be cool too. People asking, I'm currently at a 5 handicap. I've been golfing a lot.
Jatt needs an agent is what he really needs, or someone to help him.
What if I just, in 2023, I negotiate my sponsors into paying for JLXP, and then it just ends up on the TG channel, and slowly but surely I just vacuum up every third-party piece of content until
it would be an interesting strategy. Yeah, and
monopoly.
then you get acquired by the Lolly Sports YouTube channel. And
Jatt, I'm already performing better than their content. Okay, like
and it's been a rough. It's been a rough year for that channel.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I've got some ideas for them if they ever need.
Yeah.
All right. My shout outs are I'm going to Vegas with Ender and Raz and Kobe and Captain Flowers and Ovely and a bunch of people. Parth is also going, which is a fun addition.
Whoa.
Yeah. You should go, Jatt. Parth. Whoa. Anyway, and it's going to be a bunch of us taking the weekend off and going out there. So what I need from all of you is, if you're listening live or on YouTube or on podcast, go to my Twitch channel and drop your Prime sub, because I'm going to lose a lot of money and I need to be able to pay rent. Anyway, that's it. Hotline League, everyone. Thanks, Jatt, for coming on. We'll see you all next week for a special episode of Hotline League, which we haven't figured out yet, but there won't be anything to talk about, so we'll have to come up with something.
Talk about TSM rumors. I've been listening to ESPN AM radio. They somehow managed to talk about the Lakers 24 hours a day. So I think you could make a 2-hour TSM podcast, no problem.
It's not a bad idea. But the thing is, nobody cares about the TSM anymore, so that's part of the problem.
Everybody, dude, are you kidding? Anything with the name TSM doubles the performance of
it used to, but it has degraded a lot in the past 18 months.
Okay.
All right, we can debate that later. Thanks for coming on. The end of the podcast is now.
Oh, Mark, we've hit 9:23. He's having his panic moment. All right, goodbye, everyone. Thanks, Jatt. See y'all later.